Morning, everyone. Apologies for being so late. Can't do anything when थोड़ी सी बारिश हुई रात को और अब तो डर भी लगता है बारिश में चलने से, पता चले केस हमारे ऊपर ही हो जाए. Anyways, we were discussing. आवाज आ रही है ना? In our last class, we were discussing basic concepts of economics, and in that we had discussed the concept of production possibilities frontier, budget constraint, and the basic tools that an economist has, the marginal cost and opportunity cost. ठीक है, ये डिस्कस किया था हमने. Anyone has any questions? फिर आगे बढ़ते हैं. Any questions? Anyone? यार इतने सारे लोग हो, सवाल तो होना चाहिए. अखबार नहीं पढ़ते हो क्या? आंसर टू मोस्ट ऑफ योर क्वेश्चंस वुड बी कि हम बाद में कवर करेंगे, लेकिन फिर भी सवाल तो होने चाहिए तुम्हारे पास. ठीक है, जैसी तुम्हारी मर्जी, बोलो. बिल्कुल. इस मोमेंट पर कितना मैक्सिमम प्रोड्यूस कर सकते हो, ये तो हमने ऊपर जैसे लिखा था जब पीपीएफ बना रहे थे, हमने लिखा नहीं था विद न्यू नॉलेज, विद न्यू रिसोर्सेज, विद न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी. पीपीएफ का कॉन्सेप्ट स्टैटिक है कि डायनेमिक है? डायनेमिक है ना? One PPF is normative, meaning each economist, according to their own knowledge, will come up with a different PPF first, and second, it is also dependent upon available resources and technology. तो क्या available resources change नहीं होंगे with the time? क्या technology change नहीं होगी? And because of that क्या PPF change नहीं होगा? ठीक है? There is your answer. तो उस मोमेंट पर, at that moment, what is the maximum that can be produced sustainably is जो हमने marginal cost को कम करके निकाला था कि यहाँ पे marginal cost minimum है, इसके आगे जाके बढ़ जाएगी. एडिशन नहीं करना है मतलब? नहीं, हमने लेबर को ऐड किया तो था. हमने बोला था कि if you, I don't remember the exact numbers which I used in the example, but the broad example was that if you add a labor, that labor will have some fixed cost plus some variable cost. Variable cost of making one shirt, and fixed cost is the fixed wages that I pay to you. In order to recover the money that I pay to you, I will have to be sure that I can sell those extra shirts that I am producing. If I can't sell those shirts, अगर मेरे को अपना ब्रेक इवन करना है तो मेरे को 100 शर्ट बना के बेचनी पड़ेगी. लेकिन अगर मैं एक्सपेक्ट करता हूँ कि केवल मैं 50 ही बेच पाऊंगा, that means producing those 50 extra shirts is not worthwhile. Why? Because I will not be able to reach that break even point. So that was the condition that we discussed. Okay. All right. Next heading though. Economist apostrophe s. Economists advice dash types of economies. Types of economic decisions लिख लो. Types of economic decisions. All right, everyone, please pay attention here. So the task of an economist is to give an advice to you regarding whether your current way of using resources is optimal or suboptimal, right? I have some limited resources. As an economist assesses what are the available limited resources, what is the available technology, and given those resources and technology, what is the maximum that can be sustainably produced. Now, chances are in all cases, the producer will be producing less than what could have been produced. क्योंकि potential हमेशा ज़्यादा ही होता है what could have been produced. versus what is being produced, potential is always going to be more. So an economist will say that this is your current level of output, this is what can be produced, and this is a way in which you can reach this maximum level of output. Whether the current manner of use of resources is optimal or not, meaning whether the current way in which you are using your resources, will this lead you to reach that maximum, reach that potential or not. So I am going to give you an advice regarding how can you maximize your output, how can you reach that maximum level of output. Why has any producer of resources, why has any politician, decision maker, why has anyone employed an economist? An economist is not there to take the decisions. An economist is there to give you an advice. Advice number one, see, your current output versus potential is different. And the current manner in which you're using your resources, you may not be able to reach your potential. You will have to grow at, let's say, 6%, 8% every year for you to reach this potential limit. Right now, you're growing at only 5% or 4%. So it doesn't seem that you're going to reach your potential. Please do this, this, and this so that you will be able to reach your potential. So I am there as an economist to advise the decision maker. I am not the decision maker here. Is this clear to everyone? Now, over a period of time, many entities would have employed economists in this task. Economist as such was never a separate profession, never some particular other person professional. कंपेयर करना बहुत आसान है और ज्ञान देना तो और भी आसान है कि भाई इतना बना सकते हो वर्सेस इतना बना रहे हो, इस तरीके से बनाओगे तो ज्यादा बना सकते हो. Kings, producers, businesses, entrepreneurs, all these people have many time, for a very long time, employed economists to advise them that what is the way in which they can maximize their output. Now, over a period of time, let's say hundreds of years, thousands of years, over a period of time, economists would have tried to arrive at some conclusion. Conclusion being कि किस तरीके से हम अपने रिसोर्स को इस्तेमाल करेंगे तो हमारा आउटपुट मैक्सिमाइज हो सकता है. This is what we are talking about here. Economists advise types of economic decisions. Over a period of time, economists said that the way to maximize your output is XYZ, जो भी डिस्कस करने वाले हैं, that this is the way in which you maximize your output. That came up as one kind of economic decision or one kind of economic advice. Economists will advise कि आपको अपना resources को maximize करने का, use करने का तरीका ये है. What is that way? Economists say that one way to maximize your output is what is called as libertarian approach. लाइबर्टेरियन वर्ड कहां से आया, क्या रूट है इस वर्ड का? लिबर्टी. लिबर्टी का मतलब क्या होता है? फ्रीडम. फ्रीडम. Libertarian approach. Economists would say that the way to maximize your output is when everybody has liberty to do what they are doing, liberty to decide how they want to use whatever limited resources they have. You have coal, you have iron ore, you have land, you have seeds, you have water, you have only your labor, nothing else. The best way to use resources, meaning the best way to increase the output, reach that potential output, is when everybody is in control of the resources. Everybody has full control over whatever they have, more or less, labor, land, whatever you have. आपके पास अगर full control है, full decision making power है, that is the only way in which you can maximize your output. This is called as libertarian approach. Liberty. Everybody is at liberty to decide what they want to do with the resources, how they want to use it, how much they want to use it, whatever they want to do. Everybody has full liberty. इसको हमने क्या बोला? Libertarian approach or libertarian system. Is it clear? Libertarian approach, based on the idea of liberty or independence, this libertarian approach informs a kind of economy that is called as a free market economy. Libertarian approach to decision making. Economist is saying that everybody has full liberty to decide what they want to do with the resources. Libertarian approach results in what is called as free market economy. Free market का मतलब क्या है? Free का मतलब यहाँ पे पैसा वाला free नहीं है. Free का मतलब यहाँ पे freedom. Free market means everybody has complete freedom to enter or exit from the production process. whatever resource I have complete freedom. How do I want to use this resource? I don't want to use it in this manner, I can immediately change, meaning I can exit from this kind of use of resources. I have land right now, I'm cultivating mangoes on that land, I have complete freedom. Next year I don't want to cultivate mangoes, I want to cultivate tobacco, I can immediately stop cultivation and start cultivating tobacco. Next year I want to build real estate on that, there should not be any restriction upon me, I should immediately be able to switch over to real estate. Freedom to enter, freedom to exit. फ्री मार्केट इकोनॉमी, फ्री मार्केट का मतलब क्या हुआ? दैट देयर इज फ्रीडम इन ट्रांजैक्शंस. Any buyer or any seller, they are not to be restrained in any form. There is freedom in transaction. Anyone wants to buy, you are free to buy. Anyone wants to sell something, meaning use the resources in some manner, you are free to sell. There is freedom in transactions, freedom in the market. That is called as free market economy. सबको समझ में क्या है free market economy? Libertarian system producing what is called as free market economy. The role of state. स्टेट का रोल यहां पे क्या है? Because economy is free, individuals are free, owners of resources are free to decide what they have to do with the resources. Expectedly that will lead to maximization of output. Because individuals are free, therefore what is the role of state? What does state do? Does state interfere in economic decisions? No, state is not. In fact, that is the premise of all this thinking. Liberty का मतलब यह है कि state liberty provide करे, state को intervene नहीं करना है. There must be no intervention by the, freedom का मतलब क्या है? अगर मैं बोलूं कि कुछ restrictions है एंट्री और एग्जिट के ऊपर, तो restriction कौन लगा रहा है? स्टेट लगा रहा है ना वो restrictions. अगर freedom है तो उसका मतलब क्या है? कि state कोई restriction नहीं लगा रहा है. State does not impose any kind of restrictions. State से the role of state is limited. The state's approach should be what we call as, or the kind of state that should be there is Latin word है called as laissez-faire, laissez-faire, F-A-I-R-E, laissez-faire. Latin word है, इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Let business be business, let business do business. laissez-faire state. laissez-faire क्या हुआ? State का टाइप हुआ. देखो इन तीनों वर्ड को समझो, हम कई बार इनको synonymously यूज कर देते हैं. एक और वर्ड आएगा यहाँ पे कैपिटलिस्ट. आई एम श्योर एवरीबॉडी इज ऑलरेडी सीइंग दैट थिंग. Libertarian is the approach of decision making. Each individual is at liberty to decide what they want to do with their resources, which results in what is called as free market economy. Freedom of entry and exit, freedom of transactions, no restrictions, no conditions whatsoever. Meaning the role of state is limited. The state is called as a laissez-faire state. Latin word है जिसका मतलब क्या है? Let business do business. Do not interfere in any kind of business activity. Let business, business should be free. Let business do business. ये तीनों terms clear है? This results in kind of economic structure of the society which is called as capitalist society. Or a capitalist economy. This is kind of economy's structure capitalist. अभी एक मिनट बाद बताता हूँ capitalist क्या है. पहले ये तीनों चीज समझ में आ गई हैं. Libertarian, free market and laissez-faire. ये तीनों चीजें समझ में आ गई हैं. Before we move to this capitalist part, let's again look at this thing. Economists are saying, some economists say that the best way to use economy's limited resources is when individuals have full liberty to use the resources. क्या नाम ने दिया उसको? Libertarian approach. The question is, before we understand capitalists, the question is that why would a libertarian approach produce best use of limited resources? If each individual is at liberty, हमारा ultimate problem तो यही है ना. Economist का काम क्या है? ये बताना कि आपकी economy में ये resources हैं, इन resources से हम output को maximize कैसे कर सकते हैं? How can we maximize output given these resources? And what does the economist say? Economists say you don't do anything, meaning you are the state, you don't do anything, you don't interfere in anything. Let individuals decide what they want to do with the resources. Everybody should have full liberty. You follow the laissez-faire approach, meaning you let business do business. The question is, you are obviously going to counter question me and say that ऐसा क्या है इस libertarian approach के अंदर कि भाई मेरे को interfere नहीं करना चाहिए? Why should I not intervene? Why do you say that this libertarian approach results in maximization of economic output? Right? That is the question. What does an economist respond to this? Economist says that libertarian approach से maximization of output कैसे होगा? When each individual is at liberty to decide what they want to do with the resources, each individual has full control over the resources. Meaning, One, there is competition. Second, there is commitment to maximize. Each individual has full liberty to use resources because market is free. Everybody is going to appropriate full output. Whatever they produce, all output will be approved by the person itself. क्योंकि सब कुछ मैं ही कंज्यूम करूंगा, जो भी मैं प्रोड्यूस कर रहा हूं सब कुछ मैं ही कंज्यूम करूंगा, तो मेरे पास दो चीजें हैं. वन, कंपटीशन है, एवरीबॉडी इज कॉम्पिटिंग अमंग देमसेल्व्स, एंड सेकंड, आई हैव कमिटमेंट. व्हाई डू आई हैव दैट कमिटमेंट? बिकॉज आई नो दैट आई विल अप्रोप्रिएट ऑल द गेन्स, ऑल द बेनिफिट्स ऑफ माई हार्ड वर्क. जो भी काम मैंने किया है, द मैन वट एवर वे इन विच आई यूज माई रिसोर्सेज, I will appropriate full benefits of that particular approach. As a result, I have full commitment to maximize the use of my resources. जो भी मेरे पास रिसोर्स, अगर मेरे पास केवल लेबर है, मैं अपनी लेबर को मैक्सिमाइज करूंगा, यूज करूंगा, जिससे उस लेबर के प्रोड्यूस होने वाले सारे रिजल्ट्स को आई एम गोइंग टू अप्रोप्रिएट टू माई सेल्फ. आई हैव लैंड विद मी, नोबडी एल्स इज टेलिंग मी व्हाट डू आई टू डू विद माई लैंड. As a result of that, I will try to maximize the output that can be produced on my land. You had land, you also had land, you people are competing with each other. Who is going to become the winner? The one who is more productive on land. अब क्योंकि लोग compete कर रहे हैं, इस कारण से दोनों land की productivity अपने maximum के ऊपर होगी. Maybe one person wins, other person loses, but at the same time, it is also assured that both will be doing maximum that they can do to produce the output on their with their limited resources. So that is why this libertarian approach produces maximum output. Is this clear? They used a term. हैंड ऑफ गॉड. ये टर्म सुनी है? हैंड ऑफ गॉड, इनविजिबल हैंड ऑफ गॉड. एनीवन हैज हर्ड दिस टर्म बिफोर? इनविजिबल हैंड ऑफ गॉड कहां पे सुनी है? हाँ, एडम स्मिथ की है, और कहीं पे सुनी है? हाँ, मैराडोना. हाँ, क्या हुआ था? 1986 वर्ल्ड कप, अर्जेंटीना वर्सेस इंग्लैंड, सेमीफाइनल या क्वार्टर फाइनल मैच था. तो Maradona, I'm sure everybody knows him, right? So Maradona, Argentina versus England का मैच था. Maradona received a pass in the box and Maradona handed the ball in the goal. तो जंप किया, जंप करके हाथ पीछे से आया और हाथ से बॉल लग के गोल में चली गई. Everybody on the field saw it. Maradona obviously knew it. Argentinians saw it. English players saw it, except the one person that mattered, which was रेफरी. रेफरी ने नहीं देखा, रेफरी ने गोल अलाउ कर दिया. उस समय वो टेक्निक्स नहीं होती थी वीआर वगैरह की, आप वापस जाके देख सकते हो. रेफरी अलाउड दी गोल एंड अर्जेंटीना वॉन एंड दे वेंट ऑन टू विन दैट वर्ल्ड कप. तो जब वर्ल्ड कप हुआ, जब खत्म हो गया वर्ल्ड कप, तो प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में मैराडोना से पूछा गया दैट आप तो भगवान को मानने वाले व्यक्ति हो, आप काफी गॉड में बिलीव करते हो, अर्जेंटीना एज एन साउथ अमेरिकन, सो व्हाई डिड यू लाई? The God doesn't ask you to lie. Why did you still lie? So his response was quite simple. भगवान चाहते हैं तो फिर मैं क्या मना कर सकता हूँ? ये तो भगवान चाहते थे कि अर्जेंटीना वर्ल्ड कप जीते. So he said that this was an invisible hand of God. This term invisible hand of God is a biblical term. Invisible hand of God meaning God works in invisible ways, basically. That is what it means. It has been popularized as in popular culture. It has been there in many instances, like Argentina, as in Maradona being one of those instances. At the same time, Adam Smith, everybody knows, has heard Adam Smith. Adam Smith, kind of father of modern economics. जो अंग्रेजों के हमने तो कुछ किया ही नहीं. अंग्रेजों के जो फादर वो हमारे फादर, तो है ना. We have a very elaborate treatise written around 2 centuries, 2 millennia back. So अंग्रेजों को नहीं पता, तो इसलिए वो हमारे फादर भी बन गए, एडम स्मिथ. एडम स्मिथ, फादर ऑफ मॉडर्न इकोनॉमिक्स. एडम स्मिथ wrote his book in 1775, an inquiry into the wealth of nations, and in that book he is laying down foundation of economic thought. This is basically his economic thought. एडम स्मिथ ने जो 1775 में किताब लिखी, an inquiry into the wealth of nations. So basically what he's trying to say is that how can nations maximize their wealth? Any society, how can the society maximize their wealth? Meaning, how can they maximize the output that they're producing? And he says that the approach should be a libertarian approach. He says that this should result in free market economy, and the state must have this laissez-faire characteristic, meaning state must let business do business. State should not interfere in any kind of business activity. And the justification that he gives is that there is some kind of invisible hand of God here, meaning individuals have resources. Resources individuals के हैं कि state के हैं? Individuals के हैं. He's saying that individuals have resources, land, labor, seeds, water, whatever. Each individual has control over those resources. Number one, each individual is working hard to maximize output with their resources. I am not working for somebody else. I'm working for myself. Each individual is working in their own selfish interest. Each one is trying to maximize their selfish interest. Nobody cares about, let's say, social interest or somebody else's interest. But even though no one is working in social interest or collective interest, even though everybody is working with their selfish interest, this automatically leads to maximization of social interest as well. Each one, when they work to maximize their own interest without caring for others' interest, this automatically results in maximizing social interest, meaning collective interest as well. This maximization of collective interest, this is what he describes using invisible hand of God. सबको आगे समझ में क्या है invisible hand of God? Is this clear? So this is a libertarian approach. Now in this economy, which kind of people do you think are going to end up with more prosperity, with more resources, more incomes? The ones that have control over scarce resources. Discuss किया था ना हमने scarce Marxist वाली approach जब discuss कर रहे थे. The ones that have control over scarce resources, they are the ones who will have more bargaining power to enforce their interest as compared to others. याद है मार्क्स ने क्या बोला था? Inequalities because of differences in ability of people to maximize or enforce their interest. So the ones that have control over limited resources, they are the ones who are going to benefit the most from this system. I have land will be able to produce much better returns as compared to other resources. Hence, I am the one who's going to become wealthy here. The ones with access to capital are the ones that become much more prosperous in this system. The society comes to be dominated by what we call as a capitalist. इसीलिए हमने क्या नाम दिया इसका? Capitalist economy या capitalist society. Society comes to be dominated by the wealth. Whatever is being created through use of limited resources, the wealth will have some sort of concentration in the hands of those who have access to those limited or scarce resources. Is this clear? So society के अंदर dominant क्या हो गया? Capitalist dominant हो गया. इसलिए हमने society को क्या नाम दिया कि एक capitalist society या capitalist economy है. Is this clear? Inequalities because of natural reasons. याद है natural reasons, natural advantages, accidents of birth and location. Inequalities because of natural reasons would be high or low in this society? High, because your birth will determine where, in which family, with what resources are you being born. And as a result of that, somebody born in one particular family or society will automatically have control over those scarce resources. As a result, inequalities because of natural advantages are going to be high in this society. Is this clear? That is one kind of economic decision. A preferred economic decision has been that the society should have a libertarian approach, which results in a free market economy. The state must have a very limited role called as a laissez-faire state, but that results in control over wealth, control over resources by a few people called as capitalist society. Inequalities would be high. Natural factors are going to play a big role here. High inequalities. तो अगर सोसाइटी में हाई इनइक्वालिटी प्रोड्यूस हो रही है, दैट मींस सोशल इंटरेस्ट माइट नॉट बी मैक्सिमाइज्ड इन दिस केस. So this approach to economic decisions might not result in maximization of social well-being as an economy's well-being here. Why? Because interest of a few people seems to be served more as compared to other people. Capitalist society. फिर इकोनॉमिस्ट ने एडवाइस किया कि इंस्टेड ऑफ दिस देयर शुड बी सम अदर अप्रोच टू इकोनॉमिक डिसीजंस. तो एक अप्रोच तो ये थी ओरिजिनल अप्रोच. फिर आई दूसरी अप्रोच टू इकोनॉमिक डिसीजंस. द सेकंड अप्रोच इज अथॉरिटेरियन अप्रोच. Authoritarian, individual decides what to do with the resources, versus some authority decides what to do with the economy's resources. Resources do not belong to individual entities, rather resources belong in entirety to the state, to some authority. And authority exercises control. Authority का मतलब क्या होता है? Authority means anybody who has a power to enforce their decisions. That is what an authority is. Anyone who's taken a decision, I have the capability to enforce my decision. That entity is called as authority. In this authority, I will put any kind of entity that take decision, including democratically elected governments, dictators obviously, feudal lords, communist party, politburo, religious authority, any kind of authority. ये पॉलिटिकल क्लासिफिकेशन नहीं है। क्या लिखा है हमने? इकोनॉमिक डिसीजन का क्लासिफिकेशन है। आपकी पॉलिटी वाले सर मेरे को मारेंगे पकड़ के अगर मैंने ये बोल दिया कि डेमोक्रेटिक इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट इज अथॉरिटेरियन। नो, इट्स नॉट अथॉरिटेरियन। वी आर डिस्कसिंग इकोनॉमीज क्लासिफिकेशन, इकोनॉमिक डिसीजन का क्लासिफिकेशन है, ये पॉलिटिकल क्लासिफिकेशन नहीं है। पॉलिटी में, पीएसआईआर में आप अलग चीज पढ़ोगे वहां पे। ये इकोनॉमी का क्लासिफिकेशन है कि इकोनॉमी में डिसीजन मेकिंग एंटिटी के पास राइट्स हैं, लिबर्टी है या नहीं है। In this case, we have a libertarian approach, whereas in this case, we have an authoritarian approach. Some authority can be a democratic elected government. Authority can be member of Communist Party, as in Politburo. It can be some feudal lord. It can be a religious authority. Anybody. Point being, anybody who has the power to enforce whatever they have decided. जिसके पास power है, वो बन गया authority. Is this clear? Authority. Authoritarian approach, because this system results in inequalities because of natural advantages. Therefore, other economists suggested that there must be authoritarian approach. Authority must decide how do we use limited resources. Is this clear? Authority commands and controls. What kind of economy is formed here? Authoritarian approach, command and control economy. यहां पे हमारी इकोनॉमी क्या थी? फ्री मार्केट इकोनॉमी. Here, what kind of economy we have? Command and control economy, meaning authority will have complete control, complete command over all the limited resources in the economy. Authority decides rather than individual deciding. That means role of state in this case versus this case. यहाँ पे तो state का role limited था, यहाँ पे state के पास full power है, तभी हमने नाम दिया इसका authoritarian system, right? The state has full power. Whoever controls the state, it can be religious authority. Take for example Iran. It can be communist authority, China, or let's say North Korea. Elected government in case of India post independence. So anybody can be an authoritarian system. Authority here, meaning somebody who has power to decide how to use economy's limited resources. The kind of economy that gets created is command and control economy, right? Objective of this command and control economy is, भाई why this decision instead of this? यहाँ पे ज्यादा inequalities थी, तो inequalities ज्यादा थी, इसीलिए तो ये वाला decision दिया था कि भाई the better way to use resources would be when some authority decides rather than individual deciding, because in case of individuals there is going to be natural advantages, disadvantages. यहाँ पे capitalist system inequality काफी produce होगी, versus यहाँ पे हमको inequality कम करनी है. Objective is that economy's resources must be more equitably distributed. Equitable distribution. This is the objective here. Meaning, in terms of society, we say that objective here is we need to have a socialist pattern of society or of economy. Socialist का मतलब क्या हुआ? Socialist means that there must be equitable distribution of resources in the society. Authority decides, individual does not control. Your land is not your land, your labor is not your labor. It is the authority that will control each and every resource in the economy. Authority decides how to use land, labor, seeds, water, whatever. Authority commands and controls the economy with the purpose of developing an equitable distribution of wealth, of incomes in the society. Meaning the objective is that we want to have a socialist pattern of the economy. Wealth, incomes must be equitably distributed. Rather than a capitalist coming into the control of the society, it must be equitable control of society, which is the socialist pattern here. Clear हो गया सबको? दो type of economic decisions clear है? Is this clear to everybody? The two kinds of economic decisions, libertarian system and an authoritarian system. Much more role of state, very less role of state. Command and control economy here versus free market economy. Freedom to enter or exit, freedom to take decisions. Objective is, expectation is it will result in a socialist pattern, meaning more equitable distribution. Expectation is, and highly probable expectation is, it will result in a capitalist pattern, that is some people with control over limited resources are going to come to exercise power or wealth in the society. Socialist versus capitalist. सबको आगे समझ में? ठीक है? How have they fared? इकोनॉमिस्ट ने एडवाइस तो दे दिया कि भाई ऐसे डिसीजन ले लो या ऐसे डिसीजन ले लो. How have they fared? This is where we discuss the second part of our inequality chapter. हमने inequality discuss कर लिया, चैप्टर हमारा खत्म हो गया था. अब एक पार्ट inequality का हम यहाँ पे डिस्कस करेंगे. In this system, inequalities would be more or less. Capitalist, I'm sure everybody understands capitalist is equals to bad, right? Capitalist में inequality is going to be much more. In this system, inequalities are going to be less. That in fact that is the objective. पूरी inequality कम करने के लिए तो system create किया गया है, authoritarian system. in this system inequalities are going to be less, versus in this one inequalities are going to be much more, capitalist nature. Is this clear? Except that untrue. Inequalities, remember हमने डिस्कस किया था मॉडर्न रीजन ऑफ इनइक्वालिटी क्या था? मॉडर्न रीजन ऑफ इनइक्वालिटी, रूल ऑफ लॉ, याद आ रहा है? मोनोपोलाइजिंग टेंडेंसीज, every firm knows that in order to generate profits they have to monopolize, appropriate more market share. याद आ रहा है ना? And firms will pursue fair ways and unfair ways, ये भी याद है? Fair ways where firms do research and development innovation, versus unfair ways where firms use state power in order to facilitate demise of other firms. याद आ रहा है? दोनों सिचुएशन में इनइक्वालिटी होंगी, चाहे फर्म फेयर बन के मोनोपोली बने चाहे अनफेयर बन के मोनोपोली बने. लेकिन इनइक्वालिटीज डिजायरेबल नेचर की कहां पे होंगी? फेयर सिस्टम में, जहां पे फर्म इज इनोवेटिंग, रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट, फर्म शोज इंटीग्रिटी एट द टॉप, firm takes care of its employees, firm has to hire best talent. Inequalities would be there, but in that case inequalities would be of tolerable nature, society will overall benefit because of that. Versus in unfair case, जहां पे firms unfair means इस्तेमाल करती हैं, वहां पे inequalities would be of adverse nature. Why? Because firm demonstrates lack of integrity, workers would be paid poorly, firm would use resources, firm would use state's power to facilitate demise of other firms, meaning consumers are not going to get any kind of better product in that society. याद आ रहा है? Socialist as an authoritarian system versus libertarian system. Inequalities in this system, even though expected to be low, because that is the reason for this system coming into existence, expected to be low, versus in reality much higher inequalities and much adverse nature of inequality. यहां पे इनइक्वालिटी ज्यादा है और एडवर्स नेचर की है, वर्सेस यहां पे इनइक्वालिटी ज्यादा हो सकती है लेकिन एडवर्स एंड सर्टेनली परमानेंट नेचर की नहीं है. यहां पे परमानेंट नेचर की एडवर्स इनइक्वालिटी है. लेट्स सी हाउ एंड व्हाई. यहां तक क्लियर हो रहा है? अब इनइक्वालिटी की बात करेंगे. यहां तक क्लियर है? टाइप्स ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डिसीजंस, लाइबर्टेरियन एंड कमांड एंड कंट्रोल सिस्टम. Okay. In this system, authoritarian system, I said that inequalities are high, inequalities are adverse, inequalities of permanent nature. Let's understand this how and why. Imagine 1950s, 60s India. We are this kind of economy, this kind of system. Authoritarian system where state has control over most of economy's resources. ठीक है? Democratic elected government है हमारी, लेकिन हाँ, power with state immense. In fact, it's not just in 1950s, 60s, even today power with state is immense. I'll give examples to you. But हाँ, 1950s, 60s में we are explicitly a socialist economy, command and control economy, where state says हमारा objective यही है कि PSUs are going to reach the commanding heights of economy. हमने यही बोला first 5-year plan के अंदर, second 5-year plan के अंदर. So we are a authoritarian economy, not authoritarian society, as in government is not authoritarian, government is democratically elected, but हमारी economy जो है वो authoritarian economy है. Government has control over almost all of economic resources. Government decides what will be the manner of use of economy's resources. So we are that kind of economy. Let's understand that what kind of inequalities or system would be there in our economy, in our society at that point of time. Inequalities are adverse in this system because state controls all the resources here. State decides what has to be done with everything. Command and control economy. State सब कुछ decide किया है. If there is some unmet demand in the society, unmet demand समझ रहे हो? अगर कोई ऐसी चीज है जिसकी डिमांड है लेकिन वो मीट नहीं हो रही है. If there is some unmet demand of anything in the society, where would people look up to get that demand fulfilled? अगर सोसाइटी में किसी भी चीज की अनमेट डिमांड है, where will people look up to get that demand fulfilled? State. Why? Because it is state that controls all resources. जब state ही हर चीज का कंट्रोल करता है, state का मतलब state government नहीं है, state का मतलब कोई भी अथॉरिटी है, सेंटर या स्टेट कोई भी हो सकता है. Because state controls all the resources, meaning naturally everybody would look up to the state. Everybody would expect the state to fulfill their unmet demand. Versus in this case, if there is some unmet demand, where would a person look up to? अगर यहां पे कोई unmet demand है, where would the person look up to get that demand fulfilled? Going to look up to yourself. I have to get my demand met in whatever manner. And if there are people who have some unmet demand, market will, meaning somebody from amongst the society will provide for that unmet demand. You are going to become an entrepreneur because you are going to see that there are people who are willing to pay for this particular thing. You will become entrepreneur, sell your goods to these people. You look up to yourself, you look up to the market if there is some unmet demand here. You don't look up to anybody else, meaning you are not dependent upon state. Yahan pe everybody looks up to the state. State has limited or unlimited resources. चाहे स्टेट हो चाहे इंडिविजुअल, सबके पास रिसोर्स अल्टीमेटली लिमिटेड ही है. स्टेट हैज लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज. बिकॉज स्टेट हैज लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज, देयरफॉर even if assume कर लेते हैं, even if state is producing maximum that can be produced using those resources, even if, ये assumption ही गलत है वैसे तो, लेकिन अगर ऐसा मान भी लें कि स्टेट अपने रिसोर्सेज से मैक्सिमम प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है, तब भी ऐसा तो पॉसिबल नहीं है ना कि स्टेट विल बी एबल टू मीट ऑल द डिमांड्स ऑफ एवरीबडी. All demands of everybody could not be met because resources being limited versus wants or desires are much more as compared to what the resources are. State has limited resources. Number one, there is an unmet demand. When there is an unmet demand, the people look up to the state to get that demand met. The state has limited resources. The state has limited capability. Therefore, the state might not be capable. The state might not be willing, the state might not desire to provide for those unmet demand. स्टेट के पास हो सकता है रिसोर्स ही ना हो उस डिमांड को मीट करने का, स्टेट के पास कैपेबिलिटी ही ना हो उस डिमांड को मीट करने की, स्टेट के पास विलिंगनेस भी नहीं मीट करनी मेरे को डिमांड, जाओ क्या कर लोगे. State might not have the will, state might not have the resources, state might not have the capability to meet those unmet demand. Is this point clear to everybody? 1950s India. We are not just extremely poor 1950s and 60s, and it's not as if that we do not have production of, let's say, some kind of luxury good. Even necessary goods are not available in the country. खाने के लिए कपड़ा, खाना नहीं हो, वो लगान का डायलॉग है ना, पहनने के लिए कपड़ा नहीं होगा, तो वो तो ब्रिटिशर टाइम का बात है, बट यस, इवन पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस we are dependent upon foreigners for importing food. 1962 war, what does our prime minister say? 1965 war, what does our prime minister say? Please, I request Indians to leave food for one time, because if our force is not properly fed, how will they be able to fight on the borders? So forget about anything, as even a basic necessity as food is not completely available. Food की भी unmet demand है country के अंदर, तो forget about other things. Clothes, there is a huge unmet demand of clothes in the country. Footwear, huge unmet demand of footwear in the country. Let's say 1950s में या 60s में people see, there are some people in the country, let's say rich people in the country, and these rich people see that people in western countries are traveling by air. एक नया mechanism है, means है travel करने का, fast travel कर लेते हैं हवाई जहाज में उड़ के. That means there are some people in the country who are willing to pay for this service, that I want to travel by air, I want to travel by air, as in I am willing to pay for this service. Where would they look up to get this unmet demand met? स्टेट. भाई सरकार एयरलाइंस स्टार्ट करे तब हम हवाई जहाज में ट्रैवल कर पाएंगे, एंड आई एम विलिंग टू पे फॉर दैट कॉस्ट एज वेल. वुड द गवर्नमेंट बी सिंपैथेटिक टू देयर कॉज? जब सरकार क्या बोलेगी, सरकार तो हर बार ये बोलेगी ना, भाई जब देश में लोग भूखमरी से मर रहे हैं, बिना कपड़ों के मर रहे हैं, तो फिर हम कैसे एयरलाइंस स्टार्ट कर दें. स्टेट के पास तो हमेशा ये बहाना होगा कि नहीं होगा, हमेशा, इन एवरी केस state will always have this excuse that why should we do this thing, meaning we do not have resources to do this thing. And even if we had resources, हमको हवाई जहाज चलाना ही नहीं आता, हम कैसे चलाएंगे? हमको पायलट हायर करने पड़ेंगे, एयरलाइन कंपनी हमको चलानी नहीं आती, where we don't have capability to run this airlines. And forget about everything, we don't have the will, because we don't want to compromise any kind of political will, political aspirations of people. People will look up to us that we are spending money on running an airline, people are not going to come and vote us back again. That means we neither have resources, we neither have capability, we do not have the will to get this demand met. Is this clear to everybody? तो सोसाइटी के अंदर, ऐसी सोसाइटी के अंदर कई सारी अनमेट डिमांड्स होगी कि नहीं होगी? अगर अनमेट डिमांड होती है सोसाइटी के अंदर, व्हाट हैपेंस टू अथॉरिटी ऑफ दिस एंटिटी? अथॉरिटी का मतलब भी क्या बताया था? एबिलिटी टू एनफोर्स योर डिसीजंस. आपके पास पावर है, आप उस पावर को, अपने डिसीजंस को एनफोर्स कर सकते हो कि नहीं कर सकते हो. अगर आपकी सोसाइटी में अनसैटिस्फाइड लोग हैं, what is happening to your ability to exercise power over them? reducing or not? There are people in your society, you are exercising authority. Now, because there are people whose demand is unmet, your ability to exercise power is diminishing now. अगर ये अनमेट डिमांड एक थ्रेशोल्ड तक पहुंच जाती है, अगर एक मिनिस्क्यूल मिनोरिटी है जो कि एयरलाइन में ट्रैवल करना चाहती है एंड आई एम नॉट एबल टू प्रोवाइड फॉर देम, आई डोंट केयर अबाउट देम. But if there are larger number of people in the society whose demand is unmet and then I am not able to meet this demand, now I have serious problems over my authority. अब मेरी ability to exercise authority is going to diminish by a lot. Is this clear? सबको आ रहा है समझ में? Take for example Iran. There would be some people, let's say, who are willing to undertake some kind of their clothing changes, as in clothing habits. Women have died in past because they were protesting against hijab. I'm sure everybody knows. As long as there is a minuscule minority there, the state doesn't care about that. But if the number of women there or number of people who support that particular cause increases, then what happens to religious authorities ability to exercise power? We're not discussing good or bad choice, freedom or not. हम वो discuss नहीं कर रहे हैं. हम state का relation जनता के साथ discuss कर रहे हैं. अगर कोई भी एस्पेक्ट है जहां पे सोसाइटी की एक अनमेट डिमांड है, तो अथॉरिटी की एबिलिटी, अथॉरिटी को आगे झुकना ही पड़ेगा उस चीज के आगे. अथॉरिटी विल हैव टू सरेंडर टू द विल ऑफ द पीपल. इफ will of the people, if demands of people remain unmet for a very long time, then what is that going to lead to? That is going to lead to people protesting and authority having to vacate its authority then. तो authority को demand तो meet करनी ही पड़ेगी. ये बात समझ में आ गई है? There has to be some threshold. अगर उस threshold के beyond वो unmet demand हो जाती है, society को हमेशा power exercise करनी पड़ेगी, society को हमेशा अपनी responsibility exercise करनी पड़ेगी that those demands are somehow met. Is this clear to everyone? So now you have a society in which there is an authority. Authority is unable to meet an unmet demand because it doesn't have resources, will or capability, whatever. Before that reaches that critical mass, authority will have to meet that demand. अब authority अपने आप तो meet नहीं कर सकती है, तो authority क्या करेगी? Authority is now going to choose somebody from within the society. भाई ऐसा है, हमारे पास कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है, टाइम नहीं है, हमारे पास रिसोर्स नहीं है, एक काम करो, आपको हम अपॉइंट करते हैं टू प्रोवाइड दिस सर्विस. somebody from within the society would be chosen to provide for this service, meaning some private entity would now be given power. तो जो पहले स्टेट सारे रिसोर्स को कमांड एंड कंट्रोल कर रहा था, अब स्टेट अपनी कुछ अथॉरिटी किसी एक प्राइवेट एंटिटी को डेलीगेट करने वाला है. somebody from within the society is now going to get some authority over some resources, some chosen one. You have been chosen one by the state कि आपको हम right देते हैं to use some of economy's resources कि आप airlines चलाओ. A person enters into airline business now. Has this person entered because he was more competitive or because he has been chosen by the state? He's been chosen by the state to do that thing. Somebody else can run airlines better, but this person has not been chosen. This person is shielded from competition. क्या कोई competition है यहाँ पे? आपको choose किया गया है, आपको choose करके एक monopoly बना दिया गया है. Has a monopoly been created in this case? A monopoly has been created by the state in this case. I'm not talking about PSUs here. I'm talking about private companies here. State will choose somebody कि भाई हाँ, आपके पास राइट है कि आप ये सर्विस या आप ये गुड प्रोवाइड करो सोसाइटी को, एंड यू हैव कंट्रोल ओवर ऑल द रिसोर्सेज रिक्वायर्ड टू डू दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग. You have been chosen and you have been put at the top. You will remain at the top as long as you are in good books of the state, number one, and nobody else would be able to challenge you because you are the one who is connected to the state. It is connections that lead you to the top, number one, and once you are at that place, you will always remain at that place. Monopolies would be created of adverse nature. There is no competition here. There is no incentive for you to use resources in an efficient manner. जो भी आपको पावर दी गई है, आप पावर स्टेट की तरह एक्सरसाइज कर रहे हो. You have become a monopoly by virtue of getting that power by the state. Monopolies get created, and as a result of that, inequalities get created here. Clear हुआ सबको? Inequalities of adverse nature are created in such a system. Why? Because it is state that chooses. Capitalist country का example देना. US अथॉरिटी का एग्जाम्पल दो. रशिया, चाइना, नॉर्थ कोरिया. हमको क्या फीड किया जाता है? वर्ड्स एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड ऑल दीज पीपल ऑफ सच थिंकिंग, ये वाली जो थिंकिंग है, they have control over language. They have control over, for example, textbooks. And they would feed these things to you. Capitalism is equals to bad. Entrepreneurship is equals to bad. Businessman is equals to bad. This is good. This will create equality in the society. No, it is going to create much more inequality in the society of adverse nature. Everybody would be worse off. अमेरिका में इनइक्वालिटी ज्यादा है, कैपिटलिस्ट सिस्टम है. अभी बात करते हैं अमेरिका और कंपेयर करते हैं बाकी कंट्रीज के साथ. रशिया, कम्युनिस्ट कंट्री, अथॉरिटेरियन कंट्री. व्हाट इज द डिग्री ऑफ इनइक्वालिटी इन रशिया? हु कंट्रोल्स ऑल द रिसोर्सेज इन रशिया? क्या बोलते हैं रशियन बड़े बड़े जो लोग होते हैं, जो बिजनेसमैन होते हैं, उनको क्या बोलते हैं? ओलिगार्क्स. ओलिगार्क्स क्या है? क्या मतलब है ओलिगार्क्स का? मतलब क्या है? रशियन स्टेट, कम्युनिस्ट स्टेट, यूएसएसआर. जब यूएसएसआर था 91 में, बट even after 1991 it is not a communist state, but it is still an authoritarian state, है ना? authoritarian state तो भी है Russia. There are people in Russia who have unmet demand. I want power. बिजली नहीं आती मेरे village के अंदर, so there is unmet demand of power. What will government do? Government will say we can't provide power to you, therefore what we are going to do is we are going to choose somebody from amongst you whose responsibility is to mine coal, dig coal, construct a power plant and provide power to you. So government has given control over economy resources to somebody. Somebody has been chosen to do that thing. Oligarchs in Russia, they control all the natural resources in Russia. They are all the billionaires. Rest everybody is living in mostly poverty. Degree of inequality, Gini coefficient से measure करते हैं. Gini coefficient of America versus that of Russia. Russia is higher Gini coefficient. Authoritarian system. China, communist system, authoritarian. What is the degree of inequality in China? Who are the Chinese billionaires? कौन है richest person China में? अब तो नहीं है जैक मा, लेकिन एक टाइम पहले तक थे. सबको मालूम है ना क्या हुआ जैक मा के साथ? मालूम भी नहीं है इनफैक्ट क्या हुआ जैक मा के साथ. How did Jack Ma rise to become? Please समझो इस चीज को. How did Jack Ma rise to become the richest person in China? What is the story of Jack Ma? School teacher, also a communist party member. Jack Ma's rise, Jack Ma की तरह और भी कई सारे लोग होंगे जो कि सेम काम करते थे. But Jack Ma's rise is because he has been closely associated with the top members of Communist Party since very long period. The Communist Party, the authority will give him and only him with all the resources required to expand, to mobilize any kind of thing that is required. Jack Ma will have access to everything, and as a result of that, his business empire grows exponentially. He becomes a billionaire. But you are there only as long as the state wants you to be there. You have been created a monopoly, a big monopoly at that, but only as long as you have connections with the state. क्योंकि आप ऊपर कैसे पहुंचे हो? स्टेट के कनेक्शन के साथ पहुंचे हो. क्यों जैक मा का डिक्लाइन हुआ? किसी को मालूम है स्टोरी? What happened to Jack Ma? Huh? What was the criticism that he? Huh? You can all cry dictatorship until you meet the real dictator. What happens to Jack Ma? Jack Ma की कंपनी टेनेसेट. टेनेसेट का नाम सुना है? अलीबाबा तो कंपनी है. टेनेसेट का नाम सुना है? Amongst the biggest tech companies in the world, टेनेसेट. टेनेसेट का आईपीओ आना. आईपीओ समझते हो ना? हम बाद में देखेंगे कैपिटल मार्केट क्लास के अंदर आईपीओ का. इट वाज गोइंग टू गो पब्लिक, मीनिंग रेज मनी फ्रॉम द पीपल. एंड इट इज सच अ बिग कंपनी टेनेसेट. गेमिंग में, आईटी सर्विसेज में काफी बड़ी कंपनी है और बहुत एज एन $1 ट्रिलियन कंपनी है टेनेसेट. वेरी वेरी बिग कंपनी. सो टेनेसेट का आईपीओ आना था 2021 में या 2020 में. आई एम नॉट श्योर अबाउट द ईयर. 2020 या 21 में टेनेसेट का आईपीओ आना था. तो जब आईपीओ आता है किसी भी कंपनी का, व्हेन अ कंपनी इज गोइंग पब्लिक, मीनिंग व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज कंपनी इज गोइंग टू सेल इट्स ओनरशिप टू द मेंबर ऑफ जनरल पब्लिक. तो कंपनी वाले एडवर्टाइज करते हैं अपने आप को कि भाई हमारी कंपनी में आप आके पैसा लगाओ, हम आपको अपनी कंपनी का शेयर देने वाले. दैट इज व्हाट हैपेंस इन किसी भी कंपनी का आईपीओ आएगा, इट इज एडवर्टाइज्ड बाय द कंपनी बिकॉज यू वांट पीपल टू इन्वेस्ट इन दैट कंपनी. Teneset's IPO, it is a Chinese company, but its IPO was supposed to come in US. Why? Because they expected that कि one, एक तो Chinese company को अमेरिका में काफी मार्केटिंग मिलेगी काफी, वी आर गोइंग टू कैप्चर अमेरिकन मार्केट, प्लस द अमाउंट ऑफ मनी दैट वी रिक्वायर वुड बी मेट ओनली बाय अमेरिकन मार्केट्स, अमेरिकन इन्वेस्टर्स। चाइनीज इन्वेस्टर्स के अंदर इतना पैसा इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर पाएंगे। तो उन्होंने क्या डिसाइड किया कि हम अमेरिका में अपना आईपीओ लेके आएंगे। तो जब कंपनी आईपीओ लेके आती है तो काफी कंप्लायंसेस भी होती है लॉ के साथ, जैसे हमारा कंपनीज एक्ट है, सेबी है, तो इन सब के अंदर कंप्लायंसेस होगी दैट हाउ आर यू गोइंग टू सेल शेयर्स, व्हाट राइट्स विल ओनर्स गेट, व्हाट आर द प्रोसेसेस दैट यू हैव टू गो थ्रू टू कम अप विद एन आईपीओ। अगेन वी लुक एट ऑल दीस प्रोसेस जब हम आईपीओ देखेंगे, प्रोसेस देखेंगे। तो टेनेसेट क्योंकि चाइनीज कंपनी है, दे विल हैव टू कंप्लाई विद चाइनीज रेगुलेशंस, चाइनीज लॉज। Jack Ma was in US and Jack Ma gave a speech when he was advertising about Tencent's IPO. He said that China has, पहले बहुत तारीफ करी चाइना की, China has grown because member of Communist Party, काफी तारीफ करी कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी की, कम्युनिस्ट सिस्टम की। फिर उसके बाद जैक मा ने एक स्टेटमेंट बोल दिया। He said that going ahead we also have to reform our bureaucratic processes which make it easier for Chinese companies to raise money from other economies, from other markets. This is what he said. We have to reform our bureaucratic processes. We can't be in the 19th century or 20th century. हमको साथ साथ reform करना पड़ेगा. This is what is reform करना पड़ेगा. Next date, location unknown. And then शायद तुम लोग को याद होगा, तुमने देखा होगा 3-4 महीने बाद फिर वीडियो आता जैक मा का, गंदी सी टी शर्ट पहनी हुई थी और बोल रहा था कि जो नहीं मैं ठीक हूं बिल्कुल, किस ने मेरे को, है ना? And nobody knows where is he or what kind of compromise he has reached with the Communist Party now. Understand this system, authoritarian system. You are there only as long as you have been chosen by the state. State decides whether you can provide something or not. As long as you're in the good books, you will remain there. Otherwise, somebody else will replace you. That means यहाँ पे monopolies होंगी. Monopolies adverse nature की होंगी. North Korea अभी भी communist country है. Everything belongs to that one man only, nothing else. Everybody, बोल लो भाई यहाँ equality ज्यादा है क्योंकि सब लोग यहाँ पे extremely poor है. Everybody owns nothing. So one person has everything, other person rest everybody has nothing there, right? Get the point? Versus ये वाला सिस्टम देखते हैं. इस वाले सिस्टम में क्या होता है? Inequalities यहाँ पे है और यहाँ पे भी होंगी, लेकिन यहाँ पे adverse nature की inequalities है, यहाँ पे permanent nature की inequalities है. Versus let's see what happens here. Because you have access to, because you have a priori access to resource, पहले से आपके पास resource का access है, that means यहाँ पे you will have an advantage, natural advantage, discuss किया हमने, obviously बात है, यहाँ पे natural advantage होगा आपके पास, you have access to limited resources, hence you have an advantage there, and as a result of that, chances that you will be better off, you will have more wealth are much higher here, right? Natural advantages हैं, natural advantages will lead to high inequality in this kind of society. However, very important thing is, despite there being natural advantages, आज जिस चीज की नेचुरल एडवांटेज है वो जरूरी नहीं कि कल भी वही चीज नेचुरली एडवांटेजेस रहेगी. यू हैव एक्सेस टू सम रिसोर्स, दैट रिसोर्स में गिव यू एन एडवांटेज टुडे, बट देयर इज नो गारंटी दैट द रिसोर्स विल कीप ऑन गिविंग यू एडवांटेज फॉरएवर. टुडे यू माइट हैव सम एडवांटेज एंड हेंस यू माइट हैव अ हायर प्रोबेबिलिटी टू बी एट द टॉप, but there is no guarantee that you will remain at the top. Somebody else at some point of time after 2 years 3 years would come, किसी और के पास कोई एडवांटेज था, वो पर्सन आएगा, आपको चैलेंज करेगा और आपको अपनी पोजीशन डिस्प्लेस कर देगा. Somebody else will become more wealthy, more prosperous than you. Your place at the top is not permanent, meaning for you to remain at the top or amongst the top population, you will have to continuously fight it out. There is a continuous competition here, there is a continuous challenge here. यहां पे भी इनइक्वालिटीज होंगी, लेकिन यहां की इनइक्वालिटीज चर्निंग नेचर की होंगी. People will keep on rising up, keep on falling down. There is no permanency here. And to rise up, you will have to innovate, you will have to grow, you will have to produce something better. You have land today because land is scarce today. You have land, land gives you an advantage. Tomorrow land will not give you an advantage. Tomorrow some skill will give you an advantage. You have this skill, because of this skill that you acquired that anybody else can acquire, you can reach the top. Tomorrow there is some other skill that becomes advantageous, therefore this person will reach the top, others one will have to be pulled down from the top. तो यहाँ पे जो inequalities हैं वो churning nature की हैं. Who are all the richest person in US? कौन कौन है अमेरिका में richest person जो है? Elon Musk, okay, he has generational wealth, but let me come to Elon Musk. Elon Musk के ऊपर 2 मिनट बाद आता हूँ. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, मार्क जकरबर्ग, जैक डोर्सी ट्विटर के जो फाउंडर हैं, लैरी एलिसन ओरेकल, लैरी पेज, एरिक स्मिथ गूगल फाउंडर्स. What kind of advantage these people had? Zero. All these people come from middle class families. They are not among the rich people in USA. As in they were not among, their families were not among the rich one. Middle class families se aate the, some upper, some lower middle class families. They acquired skills that have a value today. Those skills give them an advantage, hence they are at the top. Bill Gates' place at top is not guaranteed. Bill Gates would be challenged by Warren Buffett, comes from a lower middle class family. चार्ली मंगर, हिज पार्टनर वॉरेन बफे का नाम सबने सुना है ना. वॉरेन बफे के पार्टनर चार्ली मंगर, जो उनके साथ, जो उनका बर्कशायर हैथवे कंपनी, उनके साथ जो जिंदगी भर रहे हैं, अभी पास्ड अवे रिसेंटली फ्यू मंथ्स बैक. चार्ली मंगर comes from, again a billionaire, was a billionaire as in passed away now. Charlie Munger comes from a poor family. Warren Buffett comes from a lower middle class family. Bill Gates come from middle class family. Zuckerberg comes from middle class family. Jack Dorsey, all these people come from middle class families. And how could they reach the top? Because they acquired some skills that allowed to reach them there. And Bill Gates' position at top is not guaranteed. He will be challenged by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett push him, Bill Gates come down. Warren Buffett will be pushed by Jack Dorsey or will be pushed by Jeff Bezos. They will challenge him because right now their skills are what are advantaged by the given advantage by the society. They are at the top. Tomorrow somebody else with Bitcoin and knowledge will come. अब कई सारे Bitcoin billionaire हो गए हैं, है ना? People who purchase Bitcoin. Winklevoss twins for example. Social Network देखिए तुमने, मूवी एक आई थी. There is a movie Social Network. I would advise देख लेना. Time अभी है तुम्हारे पास, देख सकते हो. 2010 की मूवी है regarding initial ploy at Facebook. So वहाँ पे I'm not going to talk about the movie's plot, but yes, there are two important characters there, Winklevoss twins. The Winklevoss twins, now what they have done is they invested in 2012 in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and because of that, now they have become billionaires. So there are people who recognize some skills are going to be advantaged in future. They acquire those skills and then they reach the top. But your place at the top is not guaranteed. Donald Trump's father was rich. What is Donald Trump's, what was his business? Donald Trump के father का क्या, Donald Trump का main business क्या है? Real estate. Donald Trump's father was among the richest people in US. He owns lot of Manhattan, जो न्यूयॉर्क का, यहाँ पे न्यूयॉर्क सिटी है. He owns most of, not most of, but he owns large properties in Manhattan. So Donald Trump's father was a billionaire, extreme among the richest people in US. Donald Trump is not among the richest people in US. डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का नेटवर्थ मतलब एसेट्स माइनस लायबिलिटीज, डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का नेटवर्थ नेगेटिव है. ही इज मोर इन डेट एज कंपेयर टू एसेट्स दैट ही हैव. अगर लायबिलिटीज हटा दे, अगर केवल एसेट्स देखें तो डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के एसेट जो है लगभग 4 या 5 बिलियन डॉलर के. ही इज अ बिलियनियर बट ही इज नॉट इन टॉप 100 नाउ, ही इज इन टॉप 500 और टॉप 1000. Donald Trump's sons, they are not going to be billionaires if they continue on the same path as in without skills. They will have to acquire skills to be at the top. That means inequalities तो यहां पर भी है, लेकिन यहां पे inequalities एक churning nature की हैं, जबकि यहां पे permanent nature की हैं. This system creates much more adverse inequalities as compared to this system. Equalities or inequality, equality of income or wealth is not even possible obviously, and is not even desirable. Equalities of income or wealth. Equality of opportunity is what is much more desirable. There must be an equity in opportunity. Opportunity होनी चाहिए कि भाई हाँ मैं भी skill acquire कर सकता हूँ. I can also have those resources which will generate a greater probability that I can reach that top. Equality of opportunity is what is desirable rather than some equality of some this hypothetical or utopian equality of wealth or income, कि सबकी इनकम बराबर हो जाएगी, सबसे ले लेते हैं, डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर देंगे. Even if you create a utopian society, hypothetical society where everybody has equal income, अगर आपने society create भी कर दी, forcefully create कर दी, within no time there will again arise inequalities in that society. Why? Because some people will work hard, some people will not work that hard. Some people will acquire skills, others will not acquire skill, and as a result of that there will always be inequality. So it's not about equality of wealth or income, it is more about equality of opportunities. This system has much more problem. ऐसा नहीं कि यहाँ पे problem नहीं है. This system has, as compared to this system, has much more equality of opportunity. As a result, has much better level of inequality. Not degree, but better level in the sense that there is churning nature. There is constant challenge here. Society overall benefits even if there is inequality here. Is it clear? The average standard of living, last point, the average standard of living of any American is much better than, or any American or German or Japanese is much better than an average standard of anybody else in any other society, as in Russian or Chinese or anybody else जिनसे भी authority system follow करते हैं यहाँ पे. ठीक है, clear हुआ? Clear है? Types of economic decisions, economies, and what kind of inequalities are there in those economies, right? Almost every year there is one question जो पक्का मेंस में होता है, जो इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ का सवाल होता है. पेपर 1 में सोसाइटी वाला पोर्शन है, पेपर 3 में जो इकोनॉमिक्स का पोर्शन है, वहां पे हर साल लगभग एक सवाल होता है. काफी कॉमन क्वेश्चन है और एक ही सवाल कई बार पूछा उन्होंने. एबिलिटी ऑफ फ्री मार्केट इकोनॉमी और कैपिटलिस्ट इकोनॉमी टू अचीव इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ. क्या आप आंसर कर सकते हो इस सवाल को? एबिलिटी ऑफ दिस सिस्टम टू अचीव इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ. इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ याद है, ग्रोथ बीइंग ब्रॉड बेस्ड. ग्रोथ बीइंग ब्रॉड, इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ के हमने 2 पिलर लिखे थे ना, क्या क्या थे? कैपेबिलिटीज एंड अपॉर्चुनिटीज. समझ में आ रहा है? अब लिंक कर सकते हो इस चीज को. ठीक है, राइट नाउ इकोनॉमिक एडवाइस, टाइप्स ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डिसीजन लिखो. इकोनॉमिस्ट्स economists advise the decision makers, economists advise the decision makers about whether their use of limited resources, is optimal, comma, and what can be done to improve the current manner of utilization. And what can be done to improve the current manner of utilization. So broadly, there are two sets. Of advices. There are two sets of OF single F. There are two sets of advices, comma, that result in different economies, that result in different economic systems. Number 1, libertarian. Dash, when the individual is at liberty. To make economic decisions. About the resources available to them. Puts up the state's role, state apostrophe S. The state's role is limited. Comma, such as to make regulations. The state's role is limited, comma, such as to make regulations in the best interest of the society. For example, regulations to ensure that to ensure that products are not missold, products are not missold, comma, or individuals do not become victims of fraud. Individuals do not become victims of fraud. Full stop. Such a limited state is known as laissez-faire state. Laissez, 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 faire, fair. Such a limited state is known as laissez-faire state. ब्रैकेट में लिख लो, let business do business. Let business do business. What's up? Individuals are free to take economic decisions. Individuals are free to take economic decisions, comma, and those with control over existing scarce resources will have a natural advantage. Those with control over existing scarce resources will have a natural advantage. As such, the capitalists come to dominate. As such, the capitalists come to dominate the society. Capitalists come to dominate the society, comma, and inequalities are generally high, comma, especially due to natural reasons. ओके, अब सेकंड लिखो. पहले क्या लिखा था हमने? लाइबर्टेरियन. आगे क्या लिखा था? सेकंड लिखो, अथॉरिटेरियन अप्रोच. डैश कमांड एंड कंट्रोल इकोनॉमी. डैश कमांड एंड कंट्रोल इकोनॉमी. Dash command and control economy. लिखो इसमें. An authority that is someone with an ability. An authority that is someone with an ability to enforce their decisions. Comma, decides how to use limited economic resources. Full stop. The objective is to achieve a socialist pattern. The objective is to achieve a socialist pattern, that is a more equitable distribution. that is to achieve a more equitable distribution of wealth in the society, of wealth in the society. नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ में लिखो, however the authority may not have authority may not have the resources or the capability or the will. Authority may not have the resources or the capability or the will to meet all the demands of people, to meet all the demands of people. Full stop. Thus it may choose somebody from within the society. It may choose somebody from within the society, comma, and delegate the corresponding authority, delegate the corresponding authority to get these unmet demands fulfilled, to get these unmet demands fulfilled. डेलीगेट का मतलब, डेलीगेट के आगे पता नहीं यार, डेलीगेट adequate corresponding authority to get these unmet demands fulfilled. Unmet demands fulfilled. Next paragraph में लिखो, the chosen entity controls the society's resources, the chosen entity controls the society's resources, comma, and hence becomes a state created monopoly, becomes a state created monopoly. It remains a monopoly, comma, while others are denied the opportunity. It remains a monopoly while others are denied the opportunity to provide such goods or services, comma, even if they can do so in a more efficient manner, even if they can do so in a more efficient manner. Next paragraph में लिखो, in a capitalist system, comma, those with natural advantages, in a capitalist system, those with natural advantages will have a greater probability, those with natural advantages will have a greater probability to reach the top, full stop. Others, comma, however, will have a relatively fair opportunity, to also reach there, Full stop. The scarce resources will not remain the same. The scarce resources will not remain the same, comma, and someone with natural advantages and someone with natural advantages would not enjoy them permanently, would not enjoy them permanently. Dash, there is no guarantee, there is no guarantee. Someone with natural advantages will not enjoy them permanently. Dash, there is no guarantee to remain at the top, to remain at the top. और लिखो इसमें थोड़ा सा इंपॉर्टेंट है, हर साल सवाल पूछा जाता है. नेक्स्ट लाइन में लिखो inequalities, inequalities would be there, inequalities would be there, inequalities would be there, comma, but would be of a churning nature. Inequalities would be there, comma, but would be of a churning nature. Fair, full stop. Fair means, fair means, fair means of monopolizing, fair means of monopolizing would be more prevalent, would be more prevalent, fair means of monopolizing would be more prevalent, comma, benefiting the society, benefiting the society. Full stop. As such, equality of outcomes, as such, equality of outcomes is not what a society, is not what a society should aspire for, is not what a society should aspire for, comma, rather equality of opportunities, rather equality of opportunities is a more desirable goal, is a more desirable goal. Equality of opportunities. एक कोट लिख लो. A society that aims for, a society that aims for equality before freedom, a society that aims for equality before freedom ends up with none, ends up with none. Full stop. A society that aims for, a society that aims for freedom before equality, freedom before equality ends up with a great measure of both, ends up with a great measure of both, unquote. Milton Friedman, Milton, a society that aims for equality before freedom ends up with none. Full stop. A society that aims for freedom before equality ends up with a great degree of or a great measure of both. मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन, मिल्टन की स्पेलिंग लिख सकते हो, फ्रीड FRIED, फ्राइड, मिल्टन फ्राइडमैन FRIED, फ्रीडमैन. महान इकोनॉमिस्ट थे. And I'm sure you can understand one important thing. Isn't there a continuous raging debate about the two schools? आज भी तुम पढ़ते हो, अखबारों में भी आता है ना. It's an unending debate. It will never end. Why? Because this system, इधर देखो सब लोग, this system will always have inequalities. Churning nature, but will always have inequalities. And this system promises something. तो जहां पे भी promise और hope आ जाता है, उसमें एक attachment permanent type का बन जाता है. And when there is hope, you are blind to current situation. When there is hope, you are blind to, because in this case, everything becomes fair in the hope of some prospective good that is going to arrive. That prospective is never going to arrive. But yes, everything seems fair. एक और कोट है, वो लिखवाऊंगा नहीं, वो नहीं लिखवाऊंगा नहीं, क्योंकि देने वाला व्यक्ति इतना अच्छा व्यक्ति नहीं है, तो इसलिए तुम उसको एग्जाम में कभी भी मत लिखना. लेकिन हाँ, विंस्टन चर्चिल का कोट है. So Winston Churchill is not something that we admire. For Britishers, for अंग्रेज लोग उनके लिए बड़े अच्छे व्यक्ति हैं. हमारे लिए तो he is a butcher of our country. As in, under his watch, 3 million people died in Bengal famine in 1946. And do you know what was the response? What did he say? Huh? Is Gandhi dead yet? Is Gandhi dead yet? That is what was the response. कि उससे बोला गया कि भाई बंगाल में 3 मिलियन लोग, 30 लाख लोग मर गए हैं फेमाइन के कारण. तो उसने बोला कि गांधी जी मरे कि नहीं, जी भी नहीं लगाया, गांधी जी मरे कि नहीं मरे अभी तक. तो ऑब्वियसली नॉट वेरी रिस्पेक्टेबल फिगर फॉर अस. फॉर देम इट इज रिस्पेक्टेबल बिकॉज ही वाज प्राइम मिनिस्टर ड्यूरिंग वर्ल्ड वॉर 2. ही वन द वॉर फॉर देम. सो different opinions. But one of his, as in he was a very witty person, he used to give out these quotes. So one of his quotes is quite interesting. He said that if you are not a socialist in your 20s, you have no heart. If you are not a capitalist in your 30s, you have no mind, you have no brain. So when you are young, he did not use 2030, he said young and old. When you are young, जब यंग होगे तभी तो आप आइडियल चीजों की तरफ प्रेरित होगे. और इससे अच्छी बात क्या है, आइडियल चीजों की तरफ प्रेरित होना, यही हमको आगे बढ़ने की वो देता है, मोटिवेशन देता है. बट एट द सेम टाइम motivation and ideal things, that one thing is that, and second is then you realize the limitations of these things and then understand, okay, this is how things are expected to work in a better way. So aspiration versus practical aspect, and because of that there will always be a kind of fight between these two schools. This authoritarian, as in those who say that this should be achieved, versus those who say that okay, no, this is better, individual must have liberty and that results in better outcomes. तो ये permanent war है जो चलती रहेगी. Clear हुआ सबको? ठीक है, समझ में आ गया? Alright, so in our basic concept discussion, अब हम next चीज के ऊपर बढ़ते हैं. अभी break लेते हैं 10 मिनट के बाद, but let's just quickly discuss one thing and then we'll take a break. So first thing that we discussed was, what does an economist do? What are the tools that an economist has? And now we have discussed the application of what an economist does with the tools, as in what are the different kinds of economic decisions that are there, libertarian and authoritarian. The next part would be basic laws of economics, वो हम discuss कर चुके हैं, law of demand and law of supply. फटाफट बताओ law of demand. Anyone who can confidently state law of demand? बोलो. नहीं, और कोई बताओ. हाँ, आगे. Good. Keeping a demand of a good depends upon multiple factors. Demand of a good depends upon क्या क्या factors हैं, बताओ, example दो. Price of the good, income of the population, taste, preferences, size of population, geography, season, all these things. बड़े सारे factors जो कि किसी भी good की demand को determine करते हैं. How much quantity of a good will be demanded? There are many factors that determine the quantity demanded. Assuming everything else to be constant, law of demand states that demand of a good is inversely proportional to its price, right? Similarly, law of supply, supply of a good, how much quantity of a good is being produced, कितना गुड प्रोड्यूस होगा, अगेन बड़े सारे फैक्टर्स को डिटरमाइन करेंगे. अ गुड इज बीइंग प्रोड्यूस, हाउ मच ऑफ इट इज बीइंग प्रोड्यूस, अवेलेबल प्राइस ऑफ द गुड, ऑब्वियसली इन द मार्केट, प्राइस ऑफ द गुड, availability of raw materials, quality of raw materials, quality of labor, price of labor, government policies, ease of doing business. But infrastructure investment, there are so many factors that will determine how much quantity of a particular good is produced or supplied. Law of supply, assuming other things as constant. Assuming everything else that determines supply is constant, supply of a good varies directly with price. याद आ रहा है? QD is inversely proportional to P, QS is directly proportional to P. Law of demand, law of supply. Now we'll discuss, ये क्योंकि हम डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, अब हम डिस्कस करेंगे एप्लीकेशन ऑफ लॉ ऑफ डिमांड एंड लॉ ऑफ सप्लाई. एंड एप्लीकेशन इज दैट इन द फॉर्म ऑफ टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स. ठीक है, हेडिंग दो, टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स, टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स dash on the basis of different aspects of demand and supply, on the basis of different aspects of demand and supply. मैंने तुमको टाइप वर्ड के बारे में बताया था ना, टाइप वर्ड से पर्सनल प्रॉब्लम मैंने बताया था ना. वेयर शुड वी यूज द वर्ड टाइप, कहां पे यूज करना चाहिए? whenever we use the word type, what happens in our mind? A versus B, right? Our mind gets compartmentalized into if this is of one type, it can't be of the other type. तो इसीलिए जब भी हमको टाइप वर्ड इस्तेमाल करना है, whenever we are using the word type, we must have some objective criteria, something that will separate two things into mutually exclusive units, right? That is where we should use the word type. Types of rivers: Himalayan river, peninsular river, east flowing, west flowing, delta forming, estuary forming, seasonal, perennial. अगर हम लिखेंगे टाइप्स ऑफ रिवर्स ये हैं तो अवर माइंड इज गोइंग टू गेट, अब ये एग्जांपल ऐसा है तुमने 8th क्लास में पढ़ रखा है, इसलिए इन दिस केस यू विल नॉट गेट कंफ्यूज. बट इट इज ऑलवेज बेटर दैट यू से टाइप्स ऑफ रिवर्स ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ प्लेस ऑफ ओरिजिन. नाउ यू से हिमालयन वर्सेस पेनिनसुलर on the basis of direction of flow, east flowing, west flowing, on the basis of feature formed when they meet the sea, delta versus estuary. Now you have classified कि भाई क्या basis है classification का. तो हमको हमेशा basis बताना चाहिए कि कोई भी चीज हम classify करें किसी type में, उसका basis क्या है. We look at types of goods. There are many types of goods, many types of goods. We don't have to mix them up. We'll have to understand कि उन goods की classification का basis क्या है. On basis of something, we'll have type 1 versus type 2. On basis of something else, we'll have type 3 versus type 4. Because type 1, type 2 and type 3, type 4 are on other basis. इसका मतलब type 1 good जो है वो type 2 और 3 और 4 का हो सकता है, type 2 good type 3 और 4 का हो सकता है ना. हमको basis हमेशा classify करना चाहिए, right? तो हम basis के अकॉर्डिंग देखें. लिखो number 1, first लिखो, हम लिखा types of goods, लिखो number 1, on the basis of, on the basis of slope of demand curve. On the basis of slope of demand curve. बताना जरा डिमांड कर्व की स्लोप कैसी होती है? डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग. वाई एक्सिस पे क्या होता है? प्राइस, क्वांटिटी, एंड दिस इज अवर डिमांड कर्व, राइट? लॉ ऑफ डिमांड, QD इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू प्राइस, अदर थिंग्स एज कांस्टेंट. ये हमारा लॉ ऑफ डिमांड है, राइट? ठीक है, तो ये हमारा डिमांड कर्व हो गया. ये तो डिमांड कर्व नहीं है ना, दिस इज अवर डिमांड कर्व. अब हमारा बेसिस क्या है यहाँ पे? टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ स्लोप ऑफ डिमांड कर्व. Read these curves. पढ़ो, बताओ एक कर्व क्या बता रहे हैं, क्या डिफरेंसेस हैं. टेक, अच्छी बातें पता है तो 1 मिनट दूसरों को भी मौका दो पढ़ने के लिए, समझने के लिए. टेक 30 seconds. Try to understand by yourself. I'll also speak. आसान सी चीज है लेकिन हाँ पहले अपने आप समझो, समझो कि क्या अंतर है दोनों कर्व्स में, दोनों इसके अंदर. Types of goods on the basis of slope. What is this slope? Almost vertical versus this is almost flat. What does this graph versus what does this graph denote? पहले विजुलाइज कर लो. I'll take 20 seconds. अच्छी बात है, आ गया है. I'll ask, फिर उसके बाद हाथ खड़े करके उत्तर देना. यू आर सेइंग, चलो अब तुमसे मैंने सवाल पूछा, और कोई बताओ, बोलो। एवरीबडी इज एबल टू विजुअलाइज, बोलो। सेंसिटिव, सेंसिटिव। इलास्टिसिटी हमने देखा था, बात करी थी, सेंसिटिविटी, इलास्टिसिटी। इन ग्राफ 1, हाउ सेंसिटिव इज क्वांटिटी टू प्राइस, मोर सेंसिटिव और लेस सेंसिटिव? क्वांटिटी की सेंसिटिविटी प्राइस के प्रति ज्यादा है, कम है? कम है। क्वांटिटी की सेंसिटिविटी टुवर्ड्स प्राइस, a large change in price is causing very small change in quantity demanded, meaning even if price increases or decreases, let's say price goes from p1 p p1 to 3p1, price अगर 3 गुना हो गया है, quantity कम तो होगी ही होगी, law of demand, quantity is going to fall, quantity was this much, now it is this much, it has fallen but has not fallen by 1/3, quantity 1/3 नहीं हो गई है। प्राइस इंक्रीज, प्राइस 3 गुना बढ़ गया है, quantity decreases, law of demand, but not by any significant amount. The decrease in quantity is very very less as compared to increase in price. Is this clear? Can I write it as, कैसे लिख सकते हैं? डेल्टा पी, डेल्टा मतलब समझते हो ना, चेंज, डेल्टा पी मच मच ग्रेटर देन डेल्टा क्यू, द चेंज इन प्राइस, किसी भी डायरेक्शन में, ऊपर नीचे किसी भी तरफ चले जाओ, द चेंज इन प्राइस इज मच मोर देन कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग चेंज इन क्वांटिटी। Is this clear? The quantity is insensitive or quantity is inelastic, versus in this case you have price, and even a very small change in price is causing a huge change in quantity demanded or not. Quantity becomes highly sensitive to price or not. Is this clear? Delta P in this case, delta P is much much less than delta Q. Clear है? What kind of goods will show this behavior? कौन से गुड्स इस टाइप का बिहेवियर शो करेंगे? बताओ, कोई बोल रहा था, सही उत्तर दिया था। एसेंशियल गुड्स, वी कॉल देम नेसेसरी गुड्स, नेसेसरी। Even if price of the good increases by a very large amount, you are not going to reduce your quantity demanded by a significant amount. Why? Because these are necessary goods, dependent, आप इनके ऊपर dependent हो। बात समझ में आ गई है? Necessary goods, necessary goods have less sensitivity of quantity to price. Example दो। medicines for example, medicine, food item, basic food items, है ना, not luxury food as in not restaurant food, but yes certainly basic food items, you will have very less sensitivity of the quantity to the price in this case. Necessary goods, the demand curve is almost vertical, the demand is insensitive to price. क्या law of demand का violation हो रहा है क्या? वॉल्यूशन ऑब्वियसली नहीं है, डिमांड कर्व अभी भी है तो डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग की, लेकिन स्लोप अब काफी वर्टिकल की तरफ है, इट इज डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग, दिस इज आल्सो डाउनवर्ड, दिस इज आल्सो डाउनवर्ड, बट इट इज ऑन द वर्टिकल साइड, दैट इज ऑन द हॉरिजॉन्टल साइड है। इज दिस क्लियर? नेसेसरी गुड्स। ऑपोजिट, ये कौन से गुड्स हैं? एग्जाम्पल के साथ बताना पड़ेगा फिर। अगर लग्जरी गुड्स हैं, बात सही है, ये फिनोमिनन एक्सप्लेन करना पड़ेगा, इनसेंसिटिविटी ऑफ, सॉरी, हाई सेंसिटिविटी ऑफ क्वांटिटी टू प्राइस। उसके लिए वापस यहां पे जाते हैं, नेसेसरी गुड्स। नेसेसरी समझ में आ गया है? नेसेसरी क्लियर है? व्हाई इज अ गुड नेसेसरी और वर्सेस व्हाई इज अ गुड लग्जरी? दिस इज, ये तो एक हमारा मैथमेटिकल ऑब्जेक्टिव क्लासिफिकेशन हो गया। अब थोड़ा भावनाओं के ऊपर बात करते हैं कि क्या नेसेसरी है, क्या किसी गुड को नेसेसरी बनाता है, क्या किसी गुड को लग्जरी बनाता है। यूटिलिटी, यूटिलिटी, यूज ऑफ दैट गुड, high degree of use of this good, because the utility is very high, that means you can't do without this good, you have to purchase this good. Versus some goods, I desire those goods, I like to have those goods, but उनकी utility as such कोई बहुत ज्यादा नहीं है, अच्छा लगता है, I want to purchase those goods, I will be better off I purchase those goods, but as an use उसका बहुत ज्यादा नहीं, utility is less, the degree of utility is less. I am willing to buy it, but that good doesn't serve that much utility, doesn't have that much utility with me. Let's say I go somewhere and I see some painting, I really like that painting, I want कि वो painting मेरे साथ साथ चले, मेरी क्लास में यहाँ पे लगी होनी चाहिए painting। अब यहाँ पे वो पेंटिंग लग जाएगी तो कुछ पर्पस तो सर्व नहीं कर रही है, इट इज नॉट टू सर्व एनी पर्पस, लेकिन अच्छा लगता है, एस्थेटिक वैल्यू है गुड की। सबको समझ में आ रहा है? यूज एस्पेक्ट। I went to the shop to purchase that painting. I saw that it is worth 1 lakh rupees. मैंने बोला मेरे बजट के बाहर यूज कुछ है नहीं, क्यों खरीदूं मैं जबरदस्ती इस पेंटिंग को. So I did not buy that painting. It was worth 1 lakh rupees, really expensive, and the use is quite less. Hence, I could not purchase that painting. Now I get to know that the painting is available at a 10% discount. The discount is quite less, as in the price change is going to be from 1 lakh to 90,000 rupees. But now what I'm thinking, that it is the right time for me to satisfy my desires. My desires are now being satisfied at a much lower price. In my mind, I'm thinking that thing at a lower price. तो आगे शायद मौका ना मिले मेरे को इस चीज को satisfy करने का. So whatever people like me and others doing, we are all going to rush and purchase that painting. The demand of that good, even if there is slight fall in price, the demand of that good is going to rise by leaps and bounds. Even at this price, at let's say it's MRP, very few people are going to buy it. But when there is a discount, many people will now assess that they can fulfill their desire of buying this good. Meaning a small fall in price will result in a very large increase in quantity demanded. कितने का है आईफोन 15? 1 लाख रुपए से ऊपर का है, 1-1.5 लाख रुपए का है. मान लेते आपने 1 लाख रुपए का फोन लेना है. यहाँ पे बोर्ड लगा हुआ था, क्रोमा है ना, यहाँ पे बोर्ड लगा हुआ था कि HDFC बैंक के कार्ड के ऊपर आपको 6% कैशबैक मिल जाएगा. तो 6,000 रुपए का डिस्काउंट आपको मिल रहा है एक आईफोन 1 लाख रुपए के ऊपर. What will happen because of that? Everybody is going to rush and buy that phone because they think that they can save 6,000 rupees. So you satisfy your desire. The phone doesn't give you any additional use as compared to a much cheaper counterpart. But you want to possess that thing. The utility is, the degree of utility is less, but you still want to, there's a desire, तो आप अपना desire fulfill करना चाहते हो. And because it is available at some discount. क्रोमा पे आईफोन की सेल जब HDFC बैंक का डिस्काउंट है वर्सेस जब नहीं है. जब डिस्काउंट है तो पूरा स्टोर भरा हुआ है, जब डिस्काउंट नहीं है 6,000 का तब स्टोर खाली हो गया है. नोबडी इज बाइंग वर्सेस एवरीबडी इज बाइंग. समझ में आया? द प्राइस एंड quantity is highly sensitive to price. Even a small change in price results in very big increase or decrease in quantity demanded. These are luxury goods that have less degree of utility versus goods that have high degree of utility. Necessary versus luxury. Clear है सबको? समझ में आ गया है? देखो ऐसे ही लिख लो, एक काम करो, ऐसे ही ग्राफ बना लो. लिखते समय पैराग्राफ में लिख लेना, बट ग्राफ ऐसे ही बना लो सेपरेट करते हुए. बोल सकते हो, लेकिन एक्सट्रीम शब्दों को हम लिखते समय नहीं ज्यादा करते हैं, एक्सप्लेन करते. हाँ, बोल सकते हैं. 2 पार्ट्स डिवाइड कर लो, ग्राफ ड्रॉ करो. साफ सुथरा बना लो यार, क्यों मेरी तरह बना रहे हो? मेरे को पेपर नहीं देना है. नेसेसरी गुड्स एंड लग्जरी गुड्स ग्राफ बनाना, ग्राफ के साथ लिख देना डेल्टा P मच ग्रेटर देन डेल्टा Q. Necessary and luxury, almost vertical graph and almost horizontal graph. 2 पॉइंट्स बना देना. डन. लिखो, ब्रेक में बना देना ग्राफ, फटाफट लिख लो. नेसेसरी के लिखो, नेसेसरी गुड्स, these are goods, these are goods, these are goods with a high degree of utility. These are goods with a high degree of utility. So as such, their demand is less sensitive to price. Their demand is less sensitive to price. That is, even a significant change in price. That is, even a significant change in price does not lead to a significant change in QD. Does not lead to a significant change in QD. So therefore, the demand curve, is almost vertical. लिख लो, for example, life saving drugs, food items, water, ब्रैकेट में if priced. अगर प्राइस होना जरूरी है, अगर फ्री में तो फिर उसका कोई वो नहीं हो जाएगा, अगर फ्री में तो फिर काय की, है ना, तो वाटर ब्रैकेट में if priced, वाटर if priced. ओके, नेक्स्ट लिखो लग्जरी गुड्स. Write down these goods have a lesser degree of utility. These goods have a lesser degree of utility comma, but a larger degree of desire. So their demand is highly sensitive to price. That is, even a small fall in price, results in a large increase in the demand. As such, the demand curve is almost flat. एग्जाम्पल बताओ. गोल्ड, हाँ, डायमंड और मर्सिडीज बेंज, और देखें तुम्हारी लग्जरी की सोच कहां तक जाती है. पहली बात तो ये बताओ, what is luxury will differ from person to person or not. What is necessity may not differ that much. भाई नेसेसिटी सबके लिए लगभग सेम चीज है, लेकिन लग्जरी हर एक पर्सन के लिए अलग अलग है, रिलेटिव है थोड़ा सा लग्जरी. ये बात समझ में आया है पहले. सो व्हेन वी से लग्जरी, वी लुक एट, प्लीज 2 मिनट में ब्रेक ले रहे हैं, 2 मिनट से कम में ब्रेक ले रहे हैं, प्लीज 1 मिनट सुन लो. व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट लग्जरी, वी से दैट in general for the whole society, what are those goods where we see this property that when the price falls a little bit, there's a huge increase in demand. देख लो इधर, लग्जरी वर्ड जो है वो रिलेटिव वर्ड है. For you, for example, let's say Adidas might be luxury, for somebody else Nike, for somebody else Balenciaga, for somebody else something else might be luxury. तो हर एक पर्सन के लग्जरी की डेफिनेशन बहुत अलग अलग है. तो इसीलिए लग्जरी वर्ड समझो क्या है. लग्जरी गुड्स जब हम बोलते हैं, वी लुक एट की सोसाइटी के लेवल के ऊपर, फॉर द होल सोसाइटी लेवल, which is that good that is showing this property that a small change in price has resulted in a big change in quantity demanded. When you say gold for example, when you say jewelry for example, ज्वेलरी में काफी अलग अलग चीजें आ जाएंगी. जैसे ज्वेलरी में ब्रांडेड ज्वेलरी आ जाएगी. अब ब्रांडेड में भी अलग अलग चीज, ब्रांड जैसे मैंने एग्जांपल दिया आपको अभी, एडिडास, नाइकी या कपड़ों का ब्रांड हो गया. ज्वेलरी में ब्रांड हो गए हैं. एक नॉर्मल ज्वेलर स्टोर है जो कि आपको सेम चीज दे रहा है, गोल्ड डायमंड ज्वेलरी वॉटेवर है. फिर उसके बाद आप तनिष्क के ऊपर चले जाते हो, फिर तनिष्क के हायर ब्रांड कैरेटलिन के ऊपर आ जाते हो, फिर आप किसी डिजाइनर के पास चले जाते हो, नीरव मोदी टाइप किसी के पास चले जाते हो. Same cheese, same thing would be given to you by different store, but everybody is going to charge a different price for that thing. So luxury is very different for different people. But for example, FM सुनते हो? अच्छा, फोन में तो FM भी नहीं आता, तुम्हारे पास टाइम भी नहीं है. फोन में FM के एंटीना ही खत्म कर दिए हैं. तो जैसे FM पे ऐड आता है रामाकृष्ण ज्वेलर्स का, मैं मतलब बता रहा हूँ, आते सुनते रोज आता हूँ, रोज आता है, बड़े सालों से ऐड आ रहा है कि उसमें बोलते हैं रामाकृष्ण ज्वेलर्स के पास चलते हैं बिकॉज दे आर गिविंग मेकिंग चार्जेस. मालूम है ना, whenever you buy jewelry gold there are making charges. So gold का प्राइस तो हर जगह सेम है. गोल्ड इज अ ट्रेडेड कमोडिटी एंड गोल्ड प्राइस वुड बी इन द मार्केट प्राइस. So everybody is going to charge almost the same price for gold, almost the same price, but they are going to charge some making charges there. तो मेकिंग चार्जेस जैसे तनिष्क के पास आप गए, तनिष्क ने मेकिंग चार्ज लगा दिया आपके 25% 30% ऑफ द प्राइस गोल्ड वैल्यू. किसी आप लोकल स्टोर के पास गए, उसने आपके मेकिंग चार्ज लगा दिए 15% या 10%. So what is Ramakrishna Jewelers saying? They are saying that Ramakrishna Jewelers के ऊपर मेकिंग चार्ज में 50% ऑफ है. So they are charging 8% and 8% के ऊपर 50% ऑफ देके 4% चार्ज कर रहे हैं. तो आपने जब ज्वेलरी खरीदी उसमें गोल्ड कितने का है? गोल्ड है उसके अंदर मान लेते 2 लाख रुपए का. 2 लाख रुपए का 8%, 10 और 5 कर लेते हैं, 2 लाख रुपए का 10% कितना हुआ? 20,000 रुपए. तो मेकिंग चार्ज कितना लगता है? 20,000 रुपीज. अब कितना लग रहा है? 10,000 रुपीज. हाउ मच मनी आर यू गोइंग टू पे फ्रॉम योर पॉकेट? 2,10,000 rupees versus 2,20,000 rupees. Not big of a difference, but what does that lead to? Increases the pull towards the store or not? समझ में आया लग्जरी एस्पेक्ट क्या है? देख लो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल ज्वेलरी, होम डेकोर आइटम्स, पेंटिंग्स फॉर एग्जाम्पल, होम डेकोर आइटम्स, branded clothes, etc. ठीक है, चलो ब्रेक लेते हैं. ब्रेक के बाद आगे डिस्कस करेंगे. What is crony capitalism? क्रोनी की स्पेलिंग गलत है आकांक्षा. इट्स नॉट CHRONY, इट इज CRONY. क्रोनी. सुना है टर्म क्रोनी कैपिटलिज्म? हैव यू कम अक्रॉस दिस टर्म क्रोनी कैपिटलिस्ट? नहीं. क्रोनीज मतलब बात मत करो. क्रोनी कैपिटलिज्म, अगेन मैंने बोला ना, वर्ड्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो द वर्ड दैट इज यूज्ड इज, और वर्ड दैट इज फेड टू अस इज क्रोनी कैपिटलिज्म. That capitalism has cronies in it. Cronies matlab the ones who have been chosen. Capitalism has cronies or socialism has cronies? Socialism has cronies. By definition, capitalism will not have cronies. Socialism is going to have cronies. But the word that we use is crony capitalism. There is no such thing as crony capitalism. It's a oxymoron. It's a misnomer. Cronies are there in socialist system, not in capitalist system. But again, because capitalism is equals to bad, entrepreneur, businessman is equals to bad, therefore we use these terms. So cronies are in socialism, not in capitalism. लेकिन हाँ word यही है. Cronies का मतलब ये है chosen ones, the ones that are chosen by the state or by the government, that okay, you have been given this power or authority, you do whatever you want to do, you become a monopoly. That is crony. Abhishek, your question is what we'll answer in our next class when we discuss something called as public goods. अभी नहीं discuss करें, next class में discuss करें public goods. Where does India stands out in these approaches? जो हमने discuss किया है authoritarian versus libertarian. Where does India stand out? Indian economy हम क्या बोलते हैं? Mixed economy, right? Mixed economy समझ गए क्या होगा? क्या होगा? दोनों का मिक्सचर, लाइबर्टेरियन का और अथॉरिटेरियन का, ठीक है। देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज मिक्स्ड. मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी इज अ मिथ. देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी. एग्जाम में मत लिखना. एग्जाम एनसीईआरटी में लिखा है कि इंडिया इज अ मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी, तो एनसीईआरटी वही लिखना पड़ेगा, इंडिया इज अ मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी. देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी. मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी इज अ कंप्लीट मिथ, कंप्लीट मिथ. आई विल एक्सप्लेन एज इन, थोड़ा सा रैंट है बट you all understand this thing. We were a authoritarian system, as in the government command and control economy. State has control of resources because state could not meet the demand, therefore state decided that okay, you are allowed to do some businesses. State mixed में हम क्या बोलते हैं? We say that in mixed there is both public sector and private sector. ये होता है ना mixed, public private दोनों, सरकार भी है private producer भी है, ये mixed है. प्राइवेट प्रोड्यूसर का होना, existence of private producer along with government as in public producer doesn't make an economy mixed. Private producer is there because the government has allowed you to be there. You are there not because you have a right to provide, do some business. Right wala baat, liberty. You don't have some liberty. You are there because government has deemed fit that okay, you are supposed to be there. And tomorrow if government deems कि कल को आप relevant नहीं हो या फिर आपको allowed नहीं है, सरकार आपकी जगह किसी और को replace कर देगी, या फिर government बोलेगी from tomorrow onwards we are going to take over this particular sector completely. So you are not there because you have some right that okay, I have some ability, I can produce a good in a better way, I want to provide this. You are there simply because you have been chosen by the government. So that is why I say mixed economy is a myth. But when an economy transitions from this authoritarian system to this libertarian system, there will be stages there. Stages in the sense that there will be some sectors where government will allow private sector, that there is a relatively greater freedom to private sector. उसको हम बोलते हैं मिक्स सिस्टम है, कि जहां पे हमने कोई सेक्टर ओपन किया. सेक्टर ओपन का मतलब क्या है? नाउ वी से दैट वी आर नॉट चूजिंग एनीबडी इन दिस सेक्टर. Anybody who has competence can provide goods and services with respect to this particular sector. So government says that इस sector में there now can be some competition. Private people can compete, use whatever resources they have, and then provide goods and services based on their capabilities. So in that sense, there becomes a mixed economy. So some sectors remain closed for the government, others ones are relatively opened to the private sector as well. But even if government has opened a sector, government will impose a lot of restrictions upon people. Government will create barriers to entry and exit. And when government creates barriers to entry and exit, those barriers would be of such nature that only the favored ones of the government will be able to enter. तो सरकार barrier create करती है. समझ में आ रहा है? Barrier create करने से सरकार ने बोला थियोरेटिकली ये सेक्टर फ्री है, यहाँ पे प्राइवेट सेक्टर एग्जिस्ट, ये पर्टिकुलर सेक्टर है, यहाँ पे प्राइवेट सेक्टर एग्जिस्ट कर सकता है. एयरलाइंस बिजनेस है, कोई भी प्रोवाइड कर सकता है. सरकार ने बोला फ्री है. बट देन गवर्नमेंट विल क्रिएट सच बैरियर्स, सच कंडीशन दैट ओनली अ फ्यू पीपल विल बी एबल टू प्रोवाइड दोस गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज. हेंस इन दैट सेंस आल्सो इकोनॉमी रिमेन्स अथॉरिटेरियन इन नेचर. जब हम बोलते हैं ना इकोनॉमी इज मूविंग फ्रॉम, इधर देखो, इकोनॉमी इज मूविंग फ्रॉम अथॉरिटेरियन टू लाइबर्टेरियन. व्हेन इकोनॉमी मूव्स फ्रॉम अथॉरिटेरियन टू लाइबर्टेरियन, रिफॉर्म्स वर्ड सुना है ना तुमने? रिफॉर्म्स, 1991 रिफॉर्म्स फॉर एग्जांपल, एलपीजी रिफॉर्म सुना है? हम बात करेंगे बाद में आके. रिफॉर्म्स आर नॉट सम लॉ, सम अनाउंसमेंट दैट द गवर्नमेंट डज. Some unelected person in parliament will come and speak that from tomorrow onwards there will be liberalization, liberty. आपके बोलने से लिबर्टी नहीं आ जाएगी, आपके लॉ बनाने से, रूल बनाने से लिबर्टी नहीं आ जाएगी. It has to be a change in mindset. In a libertarian system, people have liberty, meaning state understands that people have liberty. State has not given them liberty. People have liberty. You are not allowed to do things. You have right to do things. बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस है इन दोनों चीजों के अंदर. क्या तुम्हें नहीं लगता कि कोचिंग इंडस्ट्री, कोचिंग सेक्टर फॉर एग्जांपल, free, private sector can come and do business, we are private entities, there are so many competition, there's so much competition going on here. तो कोचिंग सेक्टर फ्री है, प्राइवेट एंटरप्राइज एग्जिस्ट करता है. हम एग्जिस्ट करते हैं क्योंकि सरकार ने अभी तक समझा है कि भाई जो है you can exist, government has given us permission. क्या तुम्हें नहीं लगता कि इस मोमेंट पर कोई भी एक पर्सन, सरकारी पर्सन यहाँ पे आ सकता है, फायर डिपार्टमेंट का कोई पीएन यहाँ पे आ सकता है और इस समय क्लास रुकवा सकता है? At this very moment somebody can come in, somebody who is quote unquote nothing can come in. That charm of power is what is attracting you to prepare for this exam. Government has power, and because it has power, it can exercise that power in any way that it likes at any moment against any person. So we are not free, we are not liberty here. There is nothing called as mixed. There is only authoritarian versus a society understands that you have liberty. So you can be at some stage, but because government will always continue to exercise power, therefore there would be lesser of liberty, more of authority. जब तक वो एक चेंज इन माइंडसेट नहीं होता है, सरकार के माइंडसेट चेंज नहीं होता है, ऐसे सरकार का मतलब पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का नहीं, सरकारी सिस्टम का, पूरे तंत्र का माइंडसेट चेंज नहीं होता है, ब्यूरोक्रेसी का, पॉलिटिशियंस का माइंडसेट चेंज, सोसाइटी का माइंडसेट चेंज नहीं होता. हम भी हर व्हाटएवर हैपेंस, व्हाट डू वी से दैट गवर्नमेंट शुड डू दिस, गवर्नमेंट शुड डू दैट, गवर्नमेंट शुड डू. व्हाई? बिकॉज वी हैव बीन ट्रेन्ड टू बिलीव. अब समझ में आ रहा है ना? अनमेट डिमांड, एंड whom do we expect to meet that demand? Government. Whenever there is something that happens, doesn't happen, we supposed to happen, we always look up to the government to make that happen. That change in mindset, looking up to yourself or to the market versus looking up to the government. And because we look up to the government, government gets legitimacy to exercise power upon us. That is what this current system is, right? We are moving towards, yes, we are moving towards, there are many sectors that have been opened. We are moving towards from authoritarian to libertarian, but there is still a very long way to go in that direction. ठीक है? Clear है? चलो नेक्स्ट लिखो. सेकंड, टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स में ऑफ व्हाट? इंडिया. अरे ला, एक मिनट और सुन लो यार, फिर अब ऐसी बात है तो एक मिनट और सुन लो लिखने से पहले. अब देखो इन चीजों के ऊपर, क्योंकि देयर आर मेनी, भावनाएं बहुत सारी हैं यहाँ पे, है ना, और ये ऐसी चीजें हैं जो कि अब रोज अखबार में पढ़ते हो, सोशल मीडिया के ऊपर देखते हो, एंड every moment we are being conditioned either for or against these things, and that has happened as in today our views are on the extreme side. So that's an emotional issue. Please understand this thing first. अभी यहाँ पे किसी ने लिखा हुआ है Jack Ma is equals to Gautam Adani. Huge difference. There's a huge, as in ये जो आपने लिखा है, या फिर आप सोच, आपके दिमाग में आ रहा है when I'm saying गवर्नमेंट चोजेस, आई एम श्योर एवरीबडी, सबके दिमाग में घंटी वही बज रही है ना, सूट बूट की सरकार, अंबानी अडानी की सरकार, सबके दिमाग में घंटी तो वही बज रही है, अंबानी एंड अडानी. बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस है इन दोनों चीजों के अंदर. प्री 91 एंड प्री 90s एंड पोस्ट 90s. प्री 90s वी हैड दिस क्रोनीज सिस्टम, चोजन सिस्टम. सुनो फिर 5 मिनट और तो. प्री 90s वी हैड दिस चोजन सिस्टम, क्रोनीज. Socialist government said our agenda is to develop an equitable system of resources in the society, wealth in the society. That means we are going to command and control everything. But because we can't provide for all goods and services, we are going to choose somebodies. Who are the ones that government will choose? Those who can satisfy government's wants, quid pro quo, right? Those who can satisfy government wants, basically those who can fund the parties, those who can fund elections, they are the ones who are going to get these benefits. So Jack Ma, or for that matter, Indian counterparts. अगर हम 91 से पहले देखें, इंडिया में जो टॉप है, टॉप, अभी इक्वालिटी की बात करिए ना हमने, टॉप चर्निंग नेचर वर्सेस परमानेंट नेचर, इंडिया में जो टॉप है वो फिक्स्ड है कि नहीं है? 91 से पहले, 91 से पहले you have just one entity that was able to become, as in reach that top, who did not have generational wealth, which was Reliance Industries, as in Dhirubhai Ambani. Only Dhirubhai Ambani is amongst those people who comes from a very middle class, lower middle class background. Only he was the one who was able to reach that top. Rest, all those at the top were the ones who had been there at the top since long and had been kept there at the top. Tatas, Birlas, all those entities, right? Tata, Birla, Bajaj, Godrej, all these entities, they were the ones who were chosen by the government, who had been in bed with the government, as in figuratively speaking, who had been in bed with the government, as in government को benefit दो, government आपको बदले benefit देगी. Bajaj, for example. I'm sure everybody has driven or seen scooters. We were given poor quality scooters, जिनको 23.5 डिग्री पे झुकाना पड़ रहा है स्टार्ट करने के लिए. High cost, poor quality goods have been given to us. Why? Because the crony does not want foreign competition to come in. The crony does not want any domestic competition to come in. गवर्नमेंट विल से दैट कि आप ही को सारे रिसोर्सेज मिलेंगे स्कूटर बनाने के लिए आपको जिस जिस चीज की आवश्यकता है यू आर द वन हु इज गोइंग टू गेट कंट्रोल ओवर दोज रिसोर्सेज यू रिक्वायर स्टील फॉर एग्जांपल यू रिक्वायर लेदर सीट बनाने के लिए यू रिक्वायर व्हाटएवर आपको इंजन बनाने के लिए पार्ट्स इंपोर्ट करने हैं यू आर द वन हु इज अलाउड अदर वन इज नॉट अलाउड समझ में आ रहा है क्रोनिज्म कैसे चलता है ये दिस इज क्रोनिज्म somebody else says I want to make a scooter I can make it probably better quality scooter at a lesser price not allowed to import goods some foreigner Honda for example say that we want to export our scooters to your country not allowed government imposes barriers जब 91 हमारी रिफॉर्म्स हुई हैं क्या नाम है लिबरलाइजेशन प्राइवेटाइजेशन ग्लोबलाइजेशन virtually everybody was against those reforms everybody all the economists बिकॉज इकोनॉमिस्ट वर्क ऑन दैट पॉवर्टी इंडस्ट्री सोशलिस्ट सिस्टम की वहां पे जो सोशलिस्ट सिस्टम है वहां पे इकोनॉमिस्ट के पास भी तो पावर होगी ना एक्सरसाइज करने के लिए कि भाई मैं बताऊंगा ऐसे इस्तेमाल करना क्योंकि एडवाइजर तो मैं ही हूं वहां पे वर्सेस लाइबर्टेरियन के अंदर इकोनॉमिस्ट का ज्यादा वो है नहीं लाइबर्टेरियन में इट इज पीपल हु आर टेकिंग डिसीजंस देयर से ऑलमोस्ट ऑल द इकोनॉमिस्ट अगेंस्ट 1991 रिफॉर्म द जनरल थिंकिंग वाज अगेंस्ट 1991 रिफॉर्म्स फॉरगेट अबाउट इकोनॉमिस्ट्स पॉलिटिशियंस ऑब्वियसली वुड बी अगेंस्ट बिजनेसेस वर अगेंस्ट अब यू वुड थिंक दैट कि बिजनेस के तो बेनिफिशियल होना चाहिए वाली रिफॉर्म्स all the existing businesses were against why were they against can you now take a guess because competition simple सी बात है competition अभी तक आपने अपनी जो position है protect करके रखी हुई है by because you are close to the government now somebody else will come and has potential to dethrone you from the top so now every business is also against that thing so it was in that context that we said that okay कम से कम move करेंगे कम से कम बोला तो सही हमने move तो हम आज तक कर रहे हैं उस direction में अभी तक हम move नहीं कर पाए हैं as in the reforms in the country are quite painfully slow but at least we said that we are going to move towards that system that this system existing one has not produced desirable results this one is expected to produce better results so we are slowly moving towards that system we are somewhere in the middle and that is why we call ourselves let's say mixed economy तो हम आज की तारीख में एक mixed economy है we are an example of mixed economy because now what has happened is relatively speaking people have greater freedoms to pursue entrepreneurships, to pursue whatever skills they have and generate returns from those skills. Owner of Vision IAS comes from a very poor family. Unacademy, not next IAS, he's as in he also comes from initially जो उनका made easy है that is also not very he also comes from a middle class family Unacademy owners Forum IAS owner all these owners where are they coming from they're all coming from relatively poorer or lower middle class families and now they have a shot to be at the top clear hai and the one who was rich basement में जिसके भी हुआ है get the point difference समझ में आ रहा है 1955 या 57 का इंस्टीट्यूट है वो and then ownership transformation took place in around 1970s and then you understand protected from the top versus now you are facing competition from the bottom difference clear ho raha hai earlier those at the top in our country those who were amongst the rich people in the country they remained at the top and nobody else could rise to that level today we have all these Virat Kohli Shubman Gill and Jaiswal and all these people those who can now aspire to be at the top Ola's founder Flipkart's founders Vision IAS founders we are all aspiring to be at the top and we have a decent shot to be there सो आज हमारी इकोनॉमी के अंदर इकोनॉमिक इनइक्वालिटी जो है वो काफी चर्निंग नेचर की है अब जो ऊपर है एडवांटेज जिसको थी 1991 में अंबानी जी को या अडानी जी को टाटा को बिरला को एडवांटेज थी उसके कारण से आप आज भी काफी सारी चीजों के अंदर टॉप के ऊपर रहोगे बट देयर इज नो गारंटी दैट यू विल रिमेन एट द टॉप even if you remain at the top is becoming much more crowded now it was secluded exclusive club earlier now it is much more crowded now so yes we are a good example of an economy transitioning from that authoritarian towards the libertarian but still mixed economy hai still a long way to go in that direction theek hai clear chalo ab likho next second type of good likho types of goods on the basis of likho second on the basis of relationship of demand with income relationship of demand with income चलो इधर देखो दोबारा से ये हमारा डिमांड कर्व है QD inversely proportional to P under constant conditions, right? Everyone please see here. Now this demand curve was plotted under constant conditions, including that of income. अब हम यहाँ पे डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि what happens when one of those conditions, that is income, changes. What happens to demand of a good when income, other things remaining constant. अब income change होने पर demand को क्या फर्क पड़ता है? What do you expect when incomes increase? What do you expect is going to happen to demand? Demand is going to increase. This is what we expect as a normal behavior. Normally हम क्या expect करते हैं कि when incomes increase, the demand of a good is also going to increase. Normal goods. Normal goods क्या है? This is demand of the good given income I1. इधर देखो, ड्रॉ नहीं करो, पहले इधर देखो. Demand of the good given income I1, constant conditions. You have price, you have quantity. Income increases, demand increases. Meaning what will happen to demand curve? Shifts which direction? Outward, inwards? हमने plot किया था ना? Shift of curve हमने plot किया था. So at this price, let's say given this income I1, अगर पहले ये price था तो इतनी demand थी, अब same price के ऊपर ज़्यादा demand होगी. At same price you are going to demand more. At each price the demand is going to increase, meaning the demand curve shifts outwards. This becomes your new demand curve, DI2. Let's say this is my price, this is quantity demanded. Since I2 is greater than I1, at P1, Q2 is greater than Q1. ये सबको clear है? Income 2 is greater than income 1. Income has increased from I1 to I2. Since I2 is greater than I1, therefore at P1, the demand has increased from Q1 to Q2. Q2 is greater than Q1. This is what we call as a normal good. Normal behavior. Expected behavior is that when incomes increase, demand of the good is also going to increase. Clear to everybody? Opposite क्या होगा इसका? Abnormal नहीं है. It is inferior. Inferior good. Behavior तो clear होगा क्या है? Behavior would be when income increases, what happens to demand? Decrease. There might be some goods where incomes increase, but the demand will decrease upon increase in income. Why would demand increase versus why would demand decrease? Preference. पहले हमने क्या देखा था लास्ट वाले में? Utility. यहाँ पे क्या आ गया? Preference. I prefer to consume a good. Therefore, when my income increase, I would like to consume more of it. I don't prefer it. I am forced to consume that good. Meaning when I become rich, I will leave aside that good and consume something else in its place. Unpreferred goods or inferior goods. This is demand given income I1. Income increases, income बढ़ेगी. Income बढ़ने पे demand curve कहाँ पे shift होगा? Inwards or outwards? Inward. At each price, I demand less as compared to earlier. I was demanding at this price, I was demanding this much, but I now demand less than that. So at each price, demand has now decreased. Demand curve shifts inwards. This is DI2. I1 बड़ा है, I2 बड़ा है. I2, income has increased, but quantity demanded has decreased. अब यहाँ पे Q2 छोटा है as compared to Q1. Since I2 greater than I1, at P1, Q2 is less than Q1. Quantity demanded has decreased. At a higher income, you demand less of the good. This is inferior good. Is this clear? समझ में आ गया? लिखो, बनाओ, curve बनाओ दोनों. Normal goods and inferior goods, draw the graphs. Normal goods, inferior goods. लेबलिंग बहुत ध्यान से करना. इंफीरियर में गलती हो सकती है. P and Q, y एक्सिस x एक्सिस, di1 di2, एरो बना लेना शिफ्ट होते हुए बाहर की तरफ और यहाँ पे अंदर की तरफ. Since I2 greater than I1 at P1 Q2 greater than Q1, और inferior में since I2 greater than I1 at P1 Q2 less than Q1. जो inferior good है वहां पे di2 अंदर की तरफ है. Please make sure that you do not draw wrong graph, as in do not label it wrong. Normal good में सब लोग अपनी कॉपी में चेक करो. नॉर्मल गुड में अंदर वाला इज di1, बाहर वाला इज di2, di1 एंड di2 वर्सेस इंफीरियर में द इनसाइड ग्राफ इज, इनसाइड लाइन इज di2, आउटसाइड वन इज di1. Q2 is less than Q1 in inferior, Q2 is greater than Q1 in normal. Please draw it correctly, please verify it from the board. यार अगर नहीं आ रहा है वहां पे तो इन दोनों को नीचे लिख लो, जबरदस्ती क्यों घुसाने की जरूरत. मेरे पास बड़ा बोर्ड है, मैं ज्यादा लिख सकता हूँ, लेकिन तुम अपनी कॉपी के हिसाब से लिखो ना. क्लैरिटी तुम्हारे को होनी चाहिए, तुम्हारी कॉपी में से तुम पढ़ोगे. Since I2 greater than I1 at P1 Q2 greater than Q1, and in inferior since I2 greater than I1, दोनों में I2 greater than I1 है, at P1 है, in inferior Q2 is less than Q1. Done. लिखो. Write down normal good. Write down normal goods. These are preferred goods. These are preferred goods. That is desirable. That is desirable. Puts up on an increase in income, on an increase in incomes, on an increase in incomes, comma, people demand more of them. People demand more of them. First up, hence, the demand curve shifts outwards. The demand curve shifts outwards. Okay, next लिखो inferior goods. Inferior goods लिखो. Write down. These are unpreferred. These are unpreferred. That is undesirable goods. These are unpreferred. That is undesirable goods. As people's incomes increase, people's में s के बाद apostrophe, लोगों की, as people's incomes increase, comma, they prefer to consume less of them. They prefer to consume less of such goods. Prefer to consume less of such goods, comma, and substitute them with others. And substitute them with others. As such, their demand decreases. As such, their demand decreases when incomes rise. Their demand decreases when incomes rise, comma, and the curve shifts inwards. And the curve shifts inwards. ठीक है, एग्जाम्पल दो जरा. नॉर्मल गुड का एग्जाम्पल दो पहले, फिर इन्फीरियर का एग्जाम्पल देना. पहले नॉर्मल का एग्जाम्पल दो. हाँ सनीमा, entertainment, okay, or what else? Branded clothes, okay, fine. What else? Huh? Hotels, as in you would like to go to restaurants, going to a restaurant, all right. इन्फीरियर का एग्जांपल दो, इन्फीरियर का। अभी लिखना नहीं, लिखो नहीं, क्यों जल्दीबाजी कर रहे हो, तो सुन लो भाई पहले। इन्फीरियर का एग्जांपल दो भाई। मेस फूड, ऑल राइट। स्ट्रीट मैगी कैसे बोल दिया यार इन्फीरियर गुड है तुमने? और एग्जांपल दो। चाइनीज गुड्स, ओके, ठीक है, ऐसे मत करो। हाँ, नॉन ब्रांडेड क्लोथ्स, फाइन। व्हाट एल्स? ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट टीवी कंपेयर टू कलर। देखो आप लोग जो, प्लीज लिसन, आप लोग जो एग्जांपल दे रहे हो वो एक्चुअली वो गुड्स का क्लासिफिकेशन नहीं है, आप गुड्स के अंदर स्पेसिफिक नेचर ऑफ गुड बोल रहे हो। जैसे ब्लैक टीवी इज अ गुड, अब टीवी के अंदर ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट वर्सेस कलर्ड इज अनदर गुड। क्लोथ्स इज एन आइटम, अब क्लोथ्स में आप बोल सकते हो ब्रांडेड वर्सेस नॉन ब्रांडेड, बट अल्टीमेटली इट इज क्लोथ्स दैट इज द आइटम हियर। कोई एक ऐसे गुड का एग्जांपल दो कि इन्फीरियर गुड हो। लेस न्यूट्रिशन, ओके दैट्स फाइन, मतलब यू अंडरस्टैंड द पॉइंट दैट आई मेड, बट लेस न्यूट्रिशनल फूड, ओके चलो। नॉर्मल, प्लीज आप, नॉर्मल वर्सेस इन्फीरियर, लेट्स सी। प्रेफरेंसेस, देखा, प्रेफर्ड वर्सेस अनप्रेफर्ड। Preferences, desires, do they remain the same or do they change with time? Change, number one. Are they the same for one society as compared to other, or both societies can have different preferences, different desires? Different. That means idea of what is normal versus what is inferior is a very relative idea. Something that might be normal today might become inferior tomorrow. Something that is normal in today in this society might be at the same time inferior in some other society. तो अगेन जैसे हमने लग्जरी में डिस्कस किया था, इंफीरियर एंड नॉर्मल गुड्स, इन दोनों का कुछ ऐसे बहुत ही रेयर एग्जांपल्स होते हैं जो कि यूनिवर्सल हो और टाइमलेस हो। यूनिवर्सल मीनिंग दे आर इंफीरियर और नॉर्मल एवरीवेयर, टाइमलेस एवरी टाइम। देयर आर वेरी फ्यू एग्जांपल्स। फॉर एग्जांपल प्रेशियस मेटल्स, गोल्ड फॉर एग्जांपल। Gold has been seen that throughout the history and across most societies, gold has had this property of being a normal good. Meaning whenever society's incomes increase, gold की demand हमेशा increase होती ही होती है। Society becomes richer, gold's demand, precious metals, their demand increases. So we have rare examples. लेकिन हाँ, हमारे पास particular at this moment in this society ऐसे examples हो सकते हैं। Less nutritious food on the other hand is example of this type. For example, let's take potatoes. अब potatoes की जो डिमांड है, आप इमेजिन कर सकते हो कि गरीब घर वर्सेस नॉट सो गरीब घर। तो potatoes की डिमांड इन दैट poorer household versus not so poorer household, demand would be more in case of poorer household. You are consuming potatoes. अब देखो आलू गोभी में आलू तो पड़ना ही पड़ना है, चाहे वो अंबानी जी खाएं, चाहे मैं खाऊं, चाहे कोई गरीब व्यक्ति खाए। लेकिन रिलेटिवली कितना आलू पड़ना है उसके अंदर, आलू की मात्रा ज्यादा है, गोभी की मात्रा ज्यादा। डिफरेंस समझ में आ रहा है ना? So relatively speaking, potatoes for example have been considered as less nutritious food, and therefore when people's incomes rise, when society's incomes rise, it is normally seen that there's a decline in demand of potato. But demand can't decline beyond a point, as in it will always be required. Even the richer person will be consuming, the poorer person will be consuming. But there is certainly seen that there is some decline in certain goods. तो ये हम देखते हैं between normal and inferior goods. Bicycles for example. In a poor country, motorcycle. In a poor country, motorcycle would be a normal good or an inferior good? Normal good in a poor country, because people's preferred modes of transportation would be faster. जब incomes बढ़ेगी तो more demand of motorcycles in that particular good. Bicycles in that poor country would be normal or inferior good? Bicycles inferior. जब लोगों की इनकम बढ़ेगी तो लोग बाइसाइकिल खरीदना चाहेंगे, मोटरसाइकिल खरीदना चाहेंगे? मोटरसाइकिल खरीदना चाहेंगे, because people are poor. Most people would have bicycles. When people's incomes increase, they would prefer to move away from bicycles, right? Versus a rich country. When people's income increase, they already have, let's say, cars and motorbikes. When your incomes increase, you prefer to, let's say, become more environmentally conscious, health conscious, है ना, बोलते हैं. दो लोग साइकिल चला रहे हैं, एक पेट काटने के लिए, एक पेट पालने के लिए चला रहा है साइकिल. ठीक है. When people's income increase in rich countries, relatively richer countries, when their incomes increase, demand of bicycles in those countries normally increases. So bicycle in one country becomes a normal good versus in another country becomes an inferior good. Motorcycle in a poor country is a normal good. Motorcycle in a middle class country would be an inferior good. When our incomes increase, because let's say most of us have bikes or can afford bikes. When our incomes increase, we would like to purchase bikes or cars. We'd like to move up to cars then. So bike, अब आप बाइक का ब्रांड मत लेगा कि मेरे को BMW की बाइक खरीदनी है 30 लाख रुपए की. वो बाइक का ब्रांड है. बट बाइक्स इन जनरल, मोटर बाइक्स इन जनरल, motorbikes in our society would be of the category of an inferior good. Car is a normal good in our society. Versus in, let's say, Zimbabwe, motorcycles are of normal good. कार तो obviously normal good है, लेकिन कार affordable वहां पे नहीं है. Motorcycle becomes normal good, bicycles become inferior good in that society. So it is relative in nature. From time to time, from society to society, these goods vary. बहुत ही rare examples होंगे जो कि universally normal या universally inferior goods होंगे. ठीक है, लिखो. काइंड ऑफ नेसेसरी गुड्स है वो, जो हमारा पुराना क्लासिफिकेशन है. और उसके अंदर फिर आपकी इनकम बढ़ती है तो क्या आप ज्यादा चाय पीने लगते हो क्या? क्यों? प्रेफरेंस है मेरी. लिखो, राइट डाउन एग्जाम्पल लिखो. अब नेक्स्ट लाइन में एग्जाम्पल लिखो. एग्जाम्पल राइट डाउन. देर आर एक सेकेंड सुन लो, एक सेकेंड सुन लो. अगर आप लोग कॉलम्स में लिख रहे हो, इफ यू राइटिंग इन 2 कॉलम्स सेपरेटली, एग्जाम्पल को अक्रॉस द पेज लिखना. फाइन. एग्जाम्पल जो हम लिखने वाले हैं, एग्जाम्पल्स पैराग्राफ फॉर्म में वुड नॉट बी स्पेसिफिक टू नॉर्मल इंफीरियर. विल राइट एग्जाम्पल्स, बट एग्जाम्पल वाला जो पोर्शन, अब वट एवर आई एम गोइंग टू ट्रीट, राइट अक्रॉस द पेज. किसी कॉलम में स्पेसिफिकली मत लिखना उस चीज को. राइट डाउन. क्या बोला था मैंने? देयर आर रेयरली any examples, there are rarely any examples which are universally or timelessly normal/inferior. Puts up society's preferences change with time. Society's preferences change with time. So for example, motorcycles in a poor country, would generally be a normal good. That is, demand increases with increase in incomes. In a middle income country, they may not be as preferred. Comma, and may be inferior. So some goods like precious metals, gold for example, some goods like precious metals have been normal को quotes में लिखना. Some goods like precious metals have been normal while food items such as while food items such as coarse cereals या coarse grains, food items such as coarse cereals ब्रैकेट में लो न्यूट्रिशनल वैल्यू, लो न्यूट्रिशनल वैल्यू, low nutritional value have been inferior, have been inferior. ठीक है, चलो थर्ड लिखो, राइट डाउन थर्ड. दूसरी क्लास है, सच बताना. किसी चार बैच हैं, चलो लिख लो फटाफट. लिखो थर्ड, आसान है, बहुत ही आसान सी चीज है. लिखो थर्ड, राइट डाउन. गुड्स ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इफेक्ट ऑन द सोसाइटी, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इफेक्ट ऑन द सोसाइटी, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इफेक्ट ऑन द सोसाइटी. पे कैसे इफेक्ट हो सकता है? पॉजिटिव या नेगेटिव इफेक्ट हो सकता है ना. तो हमारे पास दो टाइप के गुड हैं यहाँ पे, बहुत ही आसान सी कैटेगरी है, मेरिट एंड डीमेरिट गुड्स. लिख लो 1 और 2. नंबर 1 लिख लो मेरिट गुड्स. अभी डिस्कस कर लेते हैं 1 मिनट के अंदर. दो कैटेगरीज होंगी, मेरिट गुड्स एंड डीमेरिट गुड्स. बताओ भाई क्या होंगे मेरिट गुड्स? सोसाइटी पे कैसा इफेक्ट होगा? अच्छा, पॉजिटिव इफेक्ट होगा. एग्जाम्पल दो फटाफट. हाँ, एजुकेशन सर्विसेज, ओके गुड. व्हाट एल्स? हाँ, हेल्थ केयर. और टेक्नोलॉजी इज नॉट इटसेल्फ अ गुड. ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, हाँ, सैनिटेशन सर्विसेज, ऑल राइट फाइन, ठीक है. और एग्जांपल दो. हेल्थ केयर, एजुकेशन, मेडिसिन, ठीक है. चलो डीमेरिट का एग्जांपल दो. डीमेरिट में एकदम से खुश हो गए तुम लोग. और अगर सोशल वेलफेयर तुम्हारी हंसी आ रही है तो फिर वो काहे के डीमेरिट गुड्स? बताओ एग्जांपल दो डीमेरिट गुड्स का. अल्कोहल और टोबैको और हाँ सिगरेट्स, टोबैको और व्हाट एल्स? ड्रग्स. चलो दोज हु कंज्यूम अल्कोहल और टोबैको फॉर एग्जांपल, वो लोग प्रोटेस्ट नहीं करेंगे कि कैसे तुमने अल्कोहल को डीमेरिट गुड बोल दिया. और मेरे लिए तो बहुत मेरिटोरियस है, मैं तो इसको कंज्यूम करने के बाद आई रीच सम अदर स्टेट, ड्रग्स फॉर एग्जांपल. सो हाउ डेयर यू से दैट इट इज अ डीमेरिट गुड? सो व्हेन वी सुनो, when we classify some good as being meritorious or demerit goods, there has to be some definition, there has to be some criteria as to why are we saying it is a merit good or demerit good. A merit good is that good, yes, it has a positive effect on society. A merit good is that good which has positive effect in terms of something. Demerit has negative effect in terms of something. So it's not merely meritorious or demeritorious, मतलब अच्छा या बुरा जो मुझे लगता है अच्छा या बुरा. It has to have some measurable impact on society. For example, on societal health, on worker productivity, on skill, on crime. अगर इन चीज पे पॉजिटिव इफेक्ट है सोशल एस्पेक्ट्स के ऊपर, तब बोलेंगे मेरिट है, अदरवाइज बोलेंगे डीमेरिट है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इट हैज बीन प्रोवन नॉट वंस बट एवरी टाइम, societies that have greater consumption of alcohol have greater incidence of crime, because consumption of alcohol leads to increase in incidence of crime. Hence alcohol becomes a demerit good. Greater consumption of tobacco, पता नहीं कौन सी टेंशन मिट रही है तुम्हारी tobacco consume करने पर. Greater consumption of tobacco obviously will have less productivity. It's not higher productivity, it is lesser productivity. You might get some instantaneous kick, but it is lesser productivity overall. And obviously it results in poor worker health, more expenses on healthcare. Obviously incidence of cancer would be much higher in those societies. So therefore tobacco becomes a demeritorious good. क्या नाम मैंने बोला, वर्ड्स पावरफुल है. हम क्या बोलते हैं ड्रग्स को? रिक्रिएशनल ड्रग्स. तो नाम में हमने दिया रिक्रिएशनल ड्रग्स दे दिया, जिससे नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट कोई खत्म कर दिया. पता नहीं ऐसा मेडिसिनल प्रॉपर्टी है गांजा पीने की. मतलब what is this one, as in language becomes important, words become important. I'm using this language so that you, as in you people, as not you people, as in करंट जनरेशन विल यूज दिस लैंग्वेज कि भाई इससे ये इफेक्ट है. कौन सा डॉक्टर प्रिस्क्राइब कर रहा है भाई सर दर्द के लिए आपको? मेडिसिनल प्रॉपर्टीज है. गेट द पॉइंट. These consumption of drugs leads to more, please, greater incidence of not just crime but also heart attacks in the population. जहां पे भी ज्यादा कंजम्पशन होता है. सो कैलिफोर्निया ने लीगलाइज किया, दे हैव अ हायर इंसिडेंस ऑफ हार्ट अटैक्स इन कैलिफोर्निया नाउ. सो देर आर ग्रेटर नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट्स. एक मेजरेबल एस्पेक्ट में नेगेटिव चीज होनी चाहिए, तब हम बोलेंगे कि यहाँ डीमेरिट गुड है. अदरवाइज हमको डीमेरिट या मेरिट नहीं बोलना चाहिए किसी गुड को. ठीक है, क्लियर? लिखो मेरिट गुड्स, राइट ऑन डैश. goods that have a positive effect on society. Goods that have a positive effect on society. That is generally lead to, an improvement of social well-being. Generally lead to an improvement of social well-being. For example, affordable education and healthcare. Affordable education and healthcare. Good infrastructure. Good infrastructure. Life-saving drugs. Life-saving drugs, etc. Demerit लिखो. Goods that have a negative effect. Goods that have a negative effect. Goods that have a negative effect. Full stop. Such goods usually result in deterioration of societal health. Usually result in deterioration of societal health, comma, or a reduction in worker productivity. A reduction in worker productivity, comma, or increased incidences of crime. Increased incidences of crime. For example, tobacco and alcohol. ठीक है, चलो ठीक है. नेक्स्ट क्लास कब है अपनी? परसों है. परसों मिलते हैं. वील कंटिन्यू योर नेक्स्ट क्लास विद टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स. वील डिस्कस. सुन लो एक सेकेंड यार, क्या पढ़ के आना है. ये चीज यार तुम्हारे मटेरियल एनसीईआरटी में नहीं है, सुन लो ध्यान से. ये यहीं पे ही है और कहीं नहीं है ये चीज. इन योर नेक्स्ट क्लास वील बी डिस्कसिंग different types of goods, where we'll discuss something called as Giffen and Veblen goods. Giffen and Veblen is given in your material. सुन लो भैया, Giffen Veblen मटेरियल में दिया हुआ, वो पढ़ के आ जाना क्या होते हैं. ठीक है, we'll discuss those goods, plus we'll discuss public goods, private goods. फाइन, जाओ. RB8 का कौन है यहाँ पे पहली राउंड में? RB8